the only one. You do it, Eddie. Does anybody need a copy of the old notes? I have originals.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, multiple.
I could put that in my file. Okay. Yeah, this is
Here. Give this to whoever needs.
Oh,
One to carry.
yeah, same one.
And
Doesn't matter. She's very, very well. Yes. Commercial girl. In New Jersey.
first of all, I think the wife was, when I got to know her, we tried to find Arab families representing them. At the beginning of the case, when I'm home. So. I'm assuming I've been to the sister last fall. Walking down the street, I used to get the idea a year later, for a city. Those two guys that grew up now. I've been involved with this. I've been checking county. Which the county hasn't collected the money, but they're from orange, urban, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're talking about being collected. I said, guys, we're not there. County, what are you going to do to protect us? He said, you can have problems. The person that wants to go, you have problems. But there's all God, it's bad. It wasn't easy. So.
I'll guarantee you. No, this is. We ended up having.
They know. So. You worked it out? At that point, the whole was change the transaction for 50 years down to something like that. You change. You have to believe. You got the RC, you got one, you get 1.5 of cash up front versus now. So this is what I want. Everyone, over. Who was your doctor? It's my doctor. It was not in Boston. Because I just stayed up night with people from the property. That's what I told you stand up. This guy's still trying to figure out. They don't have a lot of people that it was like a con, and people. Mary, I gave all. What was your name?
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Am I gonna get paid too? Next day? Yeah.
And it says, oh, because we're obligations on 17 minutes.
No, I wasn't talking about color, I was talking about needed something.
Oh,
They did it, they did it, yes, 2018.
The whole thing.
No, they did the whole town, and they amended it to make into.
No, it's father.
No, over there.
Father, right?
Haven't amended it.
That's your dad still,
Not for.
and your mother? Both in Florida, went together? Your mother used to drive.
I don't know. They haven't called me in about 6 weeks. Yeah.
And then they-
Well, that's okay.
I didn't realize
At least
until I
pretty for this.
told me the last name.
Oh, I know you're very smart. I
Never, never, never.
Yeah. Did you get my email? Yeah. You got that?
So you were working, and your brother.
So, Jimmy, are they amending the ordinance for the restaurants? Tonight, or reintroducing it?
I would imagine we should not take table.
So we're gonna have to reintroduce it.
I think so. I'm not sure. At the seat, depends on the change.
So did they give the new ordinance though?
I'm not sure. But he handles that.
Can I take it?
Yeah, you can copy that.
Bring up. Right.
So, yes.
Yeah. Any tax? Oh, I got a nice. But the number is. practice? Yeah.
Are we gonna have a podium? It's hard to like talk when you don't have a. Can you get another podium or something that we, it's kind of hard to read and the mask and.
Sorry?
We must have another podium or something.
What about this one over here?
Well, that one's holding a laptop.
Can't the laptop sit on the chair?
No, they left that set up. I'll see if I can find another one.
If there are IT problems, I wouldn't touch it.
I'll see if I can find another one. We have to leave that as it is.
Do you remember a commercial? Radio Free Europe? That is just in there.
What about him?
There used to be a promo for Radio
Right
Free
here,
Europe.
neighbor, friend.
I don't know if you think of that. Just things.
Oh, yeah, I would. Lawrence is. That was decided to show us that. Right.
I know. Well, she knows we're just trying to save, right?
And then I go downstairs and it's the same office. Instead of going, I'm like, it's the same. Yes.
I mean, standing here for the Manning, because we have the temp of this little bit. We have to promote like Kit and Michelle. We have to let me. They can raise their hands. And I have to allow them to talk.
Okay. Do we have a microphone over here? Or actually, it was pretty good.
It's loud. The TV's loud. Yeah. Presenter. Yeah.
You need it live.
We're live, yeah. So you guys just let me know who I'm going to be promoting.
Why do we have that?
Sure. Then also people trying to people trying to do others.
Do we want to let people know that they're live?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. So I'm not sure who we need to promote later on.
Where are they even here?
Not that I mean, the only person I don't know is that
Larissa.
I could do that one.
Yeah, because she
The panelist.
yeah, and she's gonna have to. I want her to practice sharing her screen.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Hello. Hi, Larissa. Oh, keep. You got the volume there?
Yeah, I can lower it once.
All right. Can we just practice sharing your screen real quick? If you have the presentation, right?
I wasn't sure about that. I have Eric on the phone here. I thought he had it on his end, but
You have the same thing.
you want me to pull that?
It's the same.
It's just gonna be easier through this. So everybody can see it.
Just about that.
Yeah. So I don't send me on the back.
Just email.
I just have to set up on the laptop. You go to the site. I can do it though.
Yeah.
Why you trying to act?
No, yeah, it was for town. And I think it was. Yeah. This particular one. Oh, really? And there's more. I mean. Like, how you're on the screen.
Yeah, it came up. Looks good.
No, it was not money. Jack won. She was like.
Yep, it came up.
After the fact, it's a last guy, while it's happening. Yeah.
All right, if you don't mind, just if you're comfortable enough, we'll exit for now and then we'll go back into it at the appropriate time.
Yes.
Thank you. Hey, Kit.
How are you?
Good. Yeah.
We started the day together.
Yes, we did. Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, full grass, if I can. Wait a little while. No, I'm kidding. Yes, they are, they're right here.
Yes.
Okay, I just have to see. I'll just keep an eye on it.
But you got Kit
And Larissa.
right, and then Paul. We're looking for Paul as well.
Phillips? Okay.
And Joe Marizini.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we gotta.
When we let him in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
And this is,
If they show up, we'll get sort of calling for them, but-
We'll see if this works better. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Great. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspaper that this meeting would take place at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 1st. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for.
A roll call, please.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Ms. Bernstein? Ms. Pruvis?
Here.
Ms. Saul Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Millburn?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. May I have a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 14th, 2020 Township Committee minutes? So moved. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 14th Special Township Committee minutes? So moved. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry. Any opposed? On to reports. I'll go first. We currently have 175 cases of COVID-19 in the township. In Essex County is reporting 20,129. 83% have recovered. These numbers are cumulative, and those residents that are recovered are still counted in our totals. As you all know, Governor Murphy has mandated that masks be worn at all times when social distancing is not possible. Essex County continues to offer free testing at multiple times per week. Please register at essexcovid.org. We have extended outdoor dining on Main Street through September 27th and have received positive feedback that residents are enjoying the outdoor space for fitness as well as overall community engagement. We have numerous restaurants enjoying creative outdoor dining, including the parking lot at Essex and Main, a parklet on Main Street below Millburn Avenue, and other private lots. Please be sure to participate and support our local businesses and all they have to offer. And remember to wear your mask at all times in accordance with Executive Order 163 in public spaces when social distancing is not possible. Additionally, yesterday, Governor Murphy said beginning Friday, September 4th, he signed Executive Order 183, which will allow indoor dining at a capacity up to 25%. Please know that parking fees will begin today, September 1st. The township has been on a fee hiatus since mid-March, and we are grateful to the township for this break. We rely on these monies from the parking utility for our overall budget. Essex County will be providing another COVID-19 testing site in Millburn on September 24th. This will be located at the parking lot 7, Millburn train station. Lot 7 will be closed on that day for commuters, and all are encouraged to use library lot 9 and the parking deck. This township will share additional information as it is made available. We have 2 new stores and a ribbon cutting. Tomorrow, there will be one at 9 a.m. and one at 9:30 for the 2 new businesses. Team Facial, 87 Main Street, followed by Casa de Natas at 348 Millburn Avenue. The box wraps. The boxes at Douglas Street, Town Hall Plaza, Duncan, Parking Lot 1, and Millburn and Main will be wrapped this Thursday, September 3rd. We are very pleased to have that little bit of color and some contemporary artwork to brighten those locations. The CETA Art and Advisory Committee, the CETA Committee and the Art Advisory Committee have been working closely together and will be moving towards the finalist stage of the Taylor Park art installation. We have selected 5 finalists that will be sharing their vision for the Taylor Park installment. A review of the work will take place on Wednesday, October 7th with both committees via Zoom, and a finalist will be chosen on October 14th. Thank you to all the members of both committees for their participation in the process. It has been an exciting one, and I am grateful to all those that have given their time. On Wednesday, September 9th, a week from tomorrow at 7 o'clock, the township will be hosting a Zoom call with our police chief, Brian Gilbetter, to discuss Millburn's policies and procedures regarding training and community safety with our police department. There will be follow-up discussion and presentation. This is a follow-up discussion and presentation from Sergeant Blazinski that was several months ago when he addressed the PC regarding ongoing police training and community safety protocols. Details will be posted on our website and all other community channels. The new bid SID will have its inaugural meeting on Thursday, September 10th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. Additional details will be posted on the township website. This meeting has been properly noticed in all the records publications. We would like to share their reports next. Anyone add that? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna have to remove this because. Good evening, everybody.
I'm starting by asking my fellow TC members if they agree that it is important to have transparency in government and good communication between all elected committee members. Do you agree to that?
No answer.
Okay. I am concerned that information is not being shared by the subcommittee of all TC members. The recently passed SID ordinance was passed by the majority of 3 TC members on August 11, 2020. The papers of incorporation for the SID named MISHPO were filed on August 27, 2020. I find all this extremely concerning. We only heard opposition from the town's commercial property owners. We did not hear support from the merchants, who will not only be paying this in 2022, but who MISHPO is meant to serve. The commercial property owners are very concerned with the ability for the SID to borrow money, which they will have to pay back through tax assessments. This is an area I have tried to get clarification on without success. I want to share information from the Downtown Business Improvement Loan Fund. A district management corporation, the DMC, which MISHPO is, can borrow up to $600,000. The DBIZ loan fund, this is the quote from their Google page, fund page was intended to provide support to purchase, lease, condemn, acquire land, or an interest therein as necessary for the right of way or other easement to or from the zone, relocate and move persons displaced by the acquisition of land, the rehabilitation, the redevelopment of land, acquisition, construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or installation of parking and other public facilities and improvements. Costs of appraisals or other professional services directly related to effectuating the improvement. Their concern is where is their protection when the SID borrows money? They will all be reassessed, and who ultimately is making these decisions? The only support we heard on August 11th was from the several of the subcommittee's pre-selected board of trustees, who only by chance did I learn of their in-person meeting the morning of July 30th, prior to the SID ordinance being passed and incorporated. Is this allowed? Was this a violation? Was this discussed? Are there minutes? Did they set their agenda, goals, and objectives? Have officers been predetermined? How dare Jackie, Tara, and Richard keep the property owners, merchants, and residents, the people who will pay for this, in the dark? This SID has the potential to borrow and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of the town's surplus and place as well, and also place a huge financial burden on our businesses. This is unacceptable. And now the township is being sued. I was quite shocked to learn that during the last TC meeting. Our own attorney said he did not see the papers until 5 minutes before our meeting. Thus, they were reviewed, leaving Kit unable to speak to us and to properly inform and direct the TC. So I felt it was prudent to put forth the motion to table the SID one. A second was by Committeewoman Burstein. Yet there was not even a discussion. The mayor immediately asked for a motion and a second to vote to pass this SID tax. I did not know, I still do not know what the urgency was to pass this new SID tax, except the mayor told me it was urgent. So urgent, in fact, that she would not allow for the usual public meeting in between first read and adoption, assuring, in my opinion, that less time would be allowed for objectors to be heard. Or is there some other timeline that is being followed that I'm not privy to? Perhaps the mayor and Committeeman Wasserman, who made up the subcommittee, would care to share what was the urgency. Committeeman Wasserman, what was the urgency?
Well, as we said in our previous meeting, we went over the urgency, which was a 17% vacancy rate, and there were a lot of other facts that propelled us to create the SID. But now that we're being sued, as you know, Mr. Falcon, are we allowed to discuss different points? Do we have instructions in terms of discussion of the SID now that we're under a lawsuit?
I'm sorry, I wish you could speak up a little. I didn't hear your response to the question, and I would want to, as a general proposition, yes. Since litigation has been commenced, it's the policy of the Township Committee, and of course, in this instance too, not to comment upon or discuss any aspect of the allegations that have been made. In first case, the one lawsuit, and then of course, there's the notice of Civil Rights Act and Section 1982 violations. None of that, of course, should be discussed in public, or for that matter, in private or on a street corner or at a diner or anywhere. If the question that you have just been asked falls within that purview, then that's not something that should be discussed. Diane, I'm afraid your head was turned the other way. Could you repeat the question?
My question was why the mayor and Committeeman Wasserman, who made up the subcommittee, felt it was so urgent to pass the SID when there was only objections. It was during a pandemic, and the property owners and the merchants were closed for 3 months. I didn't understand the urgency to push this.
Well, you know, we've laid out very clearly our arguments. I think, as you know, we've had 2 public sessions with property owners as well as with merchants that was open to everybody. And we laid out, you know, our argument why we think it's important to have a bid SID. I'll also point out that our neighboring towns like Summit, Morristown, and Springfield have, along with many other towns, have SIDs and have used them very effectively to combat vacancies and to advocate for merchants and to fill vacancies and to do a host of other things. And so there's a very strong argument for creating a bid SID, especially in Millburn. We have, as I just mentioned, we have a 17% vacancy rate. If you look around the township right now, on the corner of Millburn and Main Street, I think for the first time in my memory, you have an entire vacant corner. You know, so the question for me is, does the township, you know, decide to stand by and do nothing, you know, or do we decide to take action and do something to help our businesses and to support our businesses and to, you know, to try to stem the vacancies and fill these spaces. Excuse me, Nancy, can I finish? Nancy, can I finish?
If Nancy is allowed to talk, can we also talk?
No, anyway, but we laid out, wait, I'm not done. I just want to say that we've had, you know, 2 public meetings, we've discussed this, you know, in detail, and the narrative that you offer, that we're out to borrow money, that there's a secret agenda, this is a false narrative. This is a false narrative. It's not true. And all we want to do is support our town. We want to support our businesses. We want to try to make a difference here. And everything we're doing is being done in a sincere manner. This is being done. You know, this is what I, you know, personally, this is what we ran on. Diane, no, let's go there. We ran on this together. We told thousands of Millburn residents that we supported the bid. It's in the record. You can look it up. Look at our debate. You know, this is all bid. You know, this is a consistent. You know, this is something that I ran on. It's consistent. It's something you ran on, and you clicked on. Okay.
Okay, and I did say I would like to counter with, I believe the pandemic.
No, I'm just responding. I just wanted to be clear that this is something that we discussed in detail, and this is something I ran on, and this is something that I was elected to do.
Okay, I will add one thing. I did not realize that I could comment. I know the township is currently under litigation, and therefore I chose not to comment, but I will now. Thank you, Mr. Falcon. The urgency is the 17% vacancy. The reason why we made the proposal for the bid and followed it up by that is to catch this fall market. when the weather is still good and that we can still engage our residents and hopefully get some programming and some activities and some citizen engagement underway and not miss the fall session.
All of the cities rent out.
So it's either, excuse me, you do not have the right to speak. Excuse me, and you will be asked to leave, as will anybody else that does not follow protocol. This is a business meeting, and we will conduct ourselves in a professional fashion. So the urgency is the timetable. If we move quickly, hopefully we can get some activities and some engagement underway. And that's the reason.
I felt things have changed due to the pandemic and due that there was only objections. So I'm also wondering, perhaps has something to do with the presentation by Perkins Eastman to the downtown area vision plan later this evening.
Excuse me,
Jackie, this is the rest of my report, please. That subcommittee consists of Mayor, Deputy Pruitt, and Committeeman Wasserman. RFPs went out and the subcommittee selected 4 of 6 respondents were chosen to be interviewed by the full interview panel. I do not know how that panel was chosen. Then 2 finalists were interviewed by only Ms. Pruitt, Mr. Wasserman, and Alex McDonald, and they selected Perkins Eastman. A steering committee of 7 residents, including Ms. Pruitt and Mr. Wasserman, has already been pre-selected, just as the CID Board of Trustees has been pre-selected. What is going on? The problem is we do not know, and I certainly do not know. It was expected that the full TC would be involved in this process before the final firm was selected. I never heard from the subcommittee during this entire process. Then on August 11th, Ms. Pruitt announced that Perkins Eastman was the finalist and would be presenting tonight. Their intent is to ratify a contract for approval at the next TC meeting. This seems to be a done deal. This is not how our town's business should be conducted. Once again, Jackie, Tara, and Richard are keeping our townspeople in the dark and spending down the surplus of the community. That is my report. Oh, and I would like to add about the free parking. I was asked by a merchant in town if we would, once it was announced that we would be extending the closure on Main Street, if it would not be equitable to have free parking in the rest of the business districts. And I thought that sounded like a very fair idea, since everyone seems to think we're favoring the downtown, which has worked out wonderfully. And then I asked Alex, I waited a couple days for a response, and then I asked the township committee members, and it looked like just Committeewoman Burston and I agreed that it would be fair and equitable to continue the free parking for 1 more month. So I'm sorry that that didn't happen, and there was no agreement for a majority of the township committee members. And that is my report for this evening.
Excellent. I'm gonna table my report to introducing Perkins Eastman and talking about the process that we went, that I'm really proud of, and I know that my the subcommittee is proud of, and so I'll continue that.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yeah, I was just like to say that I was enjoying dinner on Main Street, and I think that it's turned into a great place for community in our town. I know that I've talked to many of the restaurants there, and I think we've really done a good service for the township, and it's great. I mean, it's great. It was totally full, and I was really happy to see that. And I also want to mention that, you know, in being around town and seeing everybody, I think, you know, I'm very proud of my fellow residents for wearing their masks and being diligent. I'm very happy. I always, in a lot of my committee page, I've been posting, you know, the official numbers. And I tell you, we've held very steady. People have been very responsible, and I think it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. I think it's something we can be very proud of, that we really help through the storm, you know, together. That's my report.
Mr. Falcon, would you like to report, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is a brief follow-up on my report at the July meeting concerning the ongoing mediation sessions convened by the court special master in connection with the township's pending declaratory judgment suit. As you'll recall, this suit seeks the approval of the township master plan's housing element and fair share plan, which will determine the number of housing units which would satisfy Millburn's obligation to provide for its fair share of low and moderate income housing. Unless and until the case is settled by means of mediation, or in the alternative as the result of a trial, the number of affordable housing units to be established as Millburn's responsibility remains undetermined. There are two interrelated mediations currently underway. As I reported last month, one has to do with the proposed development by Woodmont Properties of a property they are seeking to acquire on JFK Parkway from the New Jersey American Water Company. It's a matter of public information that this property is subject to a state-imposed moratorium on the conveyance of land located within a watershed unless approved by the Watershed Property Review Board at DEP. The mediation for Woodmont was held in August and reported to Judge Gardner at a case management conference. The court has directed that the mediation concerning this property continue. The other mediation involves the more generally Millburn's housing element and fair share plan. The mediation session took place as convened by the special master, Mr. Frank Banish, also in August, and attended by the Millburn Steering Committee and representatives of the Fair Share Housing Center, a court-sanctioned housing advocacy group, which is a participant in all such cases. The Millburn Steering Committee met to review comments on the plan recently prepared by Fair Share, and a mediation session previously scheduled for today was unfortunately adjourned due to the apparent unavailability of the Fair Share representatives and Mr. Banish. It will undoubtedly be rescheduled. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Falcon. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mayor. Just three reports. A while back, the committee had tasked or asked what would be done with the area by which is now Fairn Way and Canoe Road. There is a portion of roadway between that is unused, is not used, and what would be done to to block that from use. The township is installing two large gates on either end that will be locked and accessible only by the Department of Public Works and the utilities that do run on that road, which is JCP&L, and there is a sewer line under that roadway as well. We are still exploring some other possibilities for the 1,500 square feet of roadway that was given to the township through quick claim deeds, which could be possibly a shed or other structure for DPW to use. And we are currently pricing that out. That should be completed next week, by the end of next week. But that is determined by the order of the gates and the installation of those gates. The township has received and continues to apply for carriage reimbursement through Essex County, in which we've received another check for a time period between April and July in the amount of approximately $261,000. We are also doing the preliminary damage assessment from Tropical Storm Isaias in the event that is a recognized storm under FEMA, and that we may receive reimbursement. On September 13th, the township is going to host its inaugural Tour de Millburn, a bike event throughout the township. Excited to report that the 7-mile and the 12-mile loops are full. Registrants is open to 75 registrants, and those are full. The 2-mile loop, which is a closed course in and around the South Mountain area, was open to 100 because we expected families. There is still room there, and registration is open until tomorrow, to the close of business tomorrow, if residents are interested. Those
like to invite Mr. Vincent Wong and, yeah. Thank you. Good evening. Millburn Township resident Vincent Wong, a rising sophomore at Seton Hall Prep, has been in scouting since the 3rd grade. First as a Cub Scout, then crossing over to become a Boy Scout. Vincent is quite an active member of the troop and has been elected to be a senior patrol leader of Troop 17 and is a prospective Eagle Scout. Vincent's interest in environmental matters led him to collaborate with the Millburn Green Team on this Eagle Scout project. He was to have presented his project in person at the Green Team Sustainability Fair this past April. When the event was canceled, Vincent decided to take his community sustainability education project virtually. Every Saturday in September, I'll share this publicly after my remarks. With participation from his fellow troop members, they will be presenting a sustainability virtual event program from 11 to 11:30 a.m. These sessions will cover the importance of native plants, climate change, the crucial role of bats and sustainability, and the 6 R's of zero waste and sustainability awareness. You can find the schedule and Zoom links to these sessions on the Millburn Green Teams page on the township website, pwp.millburn.nj.us. I encourage all community members of all ages to join these Zoom sessions. Of particular note here tonight is the subject of Vincent's 3rd session, bats. I think you will all be happily surprised after joining this weekly session when any negative misconceptions you may have about bats are dispelled. During the September 19th session, you will hear from Vincent about the extremely beneficial role that bats play in our ecosystem. Attracting bats to the township's open spaces and to residential yards can help to naturally reduce the presence of mosquitoes they eat, which should lead to a reduction or elimination in the use of pesticides. As part of this Eagle Scout project, Vincent is here tonight to present our township with 4 bat houses that he and his fellow troop members assisted in constructing. By hanging these bat houses, we can attract bats, support a natural means of reducing mosquitoes, and help to restore balance in our ecosystem. Vincent, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished members of the Township Committee and fellow citizens. My name is Vincent Wong, and I am a Life Scout of Troop 17, located in St. Rosalie, West Church, Short Hills, New Jersey. Today, more than ever, it is important for all members of our community to do our part to respect the environment. If we all pitch in, we can certainly future preserve our Earth for the future generations. In partnership with the Millburn Township Green Team, I'll be hosting a virtual educational series on Zoom each Saturday of September from 11 to 11:30 a.m. The focus of my Eagle Scout project is geared towards sustainability topics, specifically in terms of native plants, impacts of climate change, crucial role of bats for sustainability, and the 6 R's of zero waste and sustainability awareness. In addition to preparing the content for the online program, my volunteers and I have also constructed 4 bat houses. Bats are a key component in not only pollinating plants and distributing seeds, but also in cutting down on mosquitoes and other insects, which serves as a natural pest control. Displayed in front of you are the 2 bat houses that my volunteers constructed under my guidance at the request of the Green Team for the Millburn Township. I understand they will be given to the proper people at the Department of Public Works for hanging where the township determines is best. I would also like to thank all of my fellow Troop 17 scouts who helped me throughout my project. Alessia O'Connor, Dominic O'Connor, James Beecham, Liam Polarski, Lucas Davis, Nikki Srirache, and Ryan Cannon. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to Troop 19 Scoutmaster and my Eagle Scout project coach, Mr. Cannon, and of course, the co-chair of the Millburn Township Green Team, Mrs. Paparian, for active support. If you would like to learn more about my Eagle Scout project or join my online outreach and educational program, please visit the Millburn Township Green Team website or see me after this meeting and I can give you a flyer. I want to thank you for your time, and I am hopeful to see all of you in a virtual meeting in the coming weeks. Have a great evening.
Next, we'll have the downtown area vision plan presented by Perkins Eastman. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Kupis and Committee Member Richard Wasserman on their hard work for this project.
So, and I'm just going to give a little bit of, before I talk Eric and Perkins Eastman, I just want to address the process that we went through to get to this evening, which I'm super excited about. So we started this process back in the beginning of the year in January, where the full committee was supportive of undergoing a vision plan, and the RFPs went out. A few different people helped from the planning board work on the RFPs, and do we have, right, so we have Paul Phillips and Joe Marizidi, who were very instrumental in this whole process as well. Joe Marizidi is an attorney, our attorney during this process, and Paul Phillips is our town planner. And RFPs went out in February before COVID happened. There was a deadline extension, and they came back in the proposal. 6 proposals came back in April. At that point, we invited, we went over the proposals and we landed on 4 of them. At least 2 of them were kind of outliers, and we decided that they wouldn't even be appropriate to bring to the next level. The committee, the subcommittee consisted of Committeeman Wasserman, Business Administrator Alex McDonald, Paul Phillips, our town planner, Joe Marizidi, and myself. And the full committee knew about all of this. Then, and I had reported along the way, and it was always reported, it was always determined that in the end, we would have one planning firm present fully to the township committee, which is where we are tonight. So once we determined who the 4 firms were, we brought in 3 members of our planning board, our chair, Gonzal, former mayor Dan Bear, and Jorge Mastro-Petro, who also sits on the environmental commission. So these are, and who happen to all be planners in their own profession. We had Joe Marizidi, our attorney, make sure that there were no conflicts all along this process, all along the way. You know, just make sure that this was an open and transparent process that had full support of the committee all along the way. Never heard anything through all the reports and all the months that we've been doing this. So we interviewed all 4 firms the first or second week in June. We did back-to-back meetings. We then met with that committee with the planning board members, and we came down to 2, and we enumerated all of them, including our professionals in that. We then invited both, we had meetings with both of the 2 selected firms. At that point, we decided that, and we invited them to come and walk the downtown, and we decided that it would be appropriate at that point for the interview process to come down to Committeeman Richard Wasserman and Alex and myself. Both firms came and walked the downtown with us. We had further conversations. We might have had 1 more meeting. We ended up with 2 proposals that through this process, we decided to relook at the scope. We got the scopes comparing apples to apples. We got it all down. We, our budgets came in, and then ultimately we decided to move forward with Perkins Eastman, and they're here tonight. And I, for one, am really proud of this process. I'd like to just open the floor to Paul Phillips and Joe Marizidi. If you guys would like to chime in for just a few minutes on your take on this whole process, having both of you been through this before in other towns, I would love for you to share some of your experience through this.
Good evening, Councilwoman and Mayor and members of the Township Committee. I'll take a very brief minute and turn it over to Paul Phillips because most of the substantive part of the evaluation is more in the hands of the thinking of Paul Phillips than mine as an attorney. But I can say, having represented municipalities throughout the state in redevelopment over the last 2 decades, I have not been part of such a thorough, comprehensive, and open process as the one that you have conducted. I sat in on all of the interviews. I reviewed all of the proposals. You couldn't go wrong with any one of them, I don't think. You had, as is not surprising for Millburn, the cream of the crop responding, and it was a very informative process, a very educational process, especially coming right on the heels of the COVID-19 crisis. And of course, we spent time discussing the impacts of that experience, not only on the public participation process, which is so important, but also on the substantive vision for the downtown area, which will be impacted naturally by that experience. So I did, as you mentioned, look at conflict issues and concluded that there are none to be concerned about. And from a legal point of view, the process is absolutely stellar and clear and appropriate. And so, having said all of that, I will yield the floor to Paul Phillips, who has a lot more to say about the planning principles and the substance of the proposals than I would. I'll be happy to answer any questions later.
Thank you, Joe. So I, as Tara had indicated, was a member of the selection committee. I participated in the drafting of the RFP and evaluation of the proposers, also participated in drafting questions that were part of the interview process and follow-up. And I also participated in the interviews with the proposers. And I do have a lot of experience on sort of on both sides of the table with this process in representing other municipalities as well as being on the proposer side during the course of my 35-year professional career. I think Tara thoroughly outlined the process. And if it's okay with you, Tara, what I'd like to do is, I understand that the Perkins Eastman team is going to give a brief presentation, and perhaps I can just make a brief comment after the presentation if you feel that that's appropriate.
That sounds good to me. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to also, before Eric comes up and presents and introduces his team, committee boss room, would you like to say a few words?
I will say a few words. This was really a very interesting and exciting process. We really had, as Paul said, we really had, maybe Joe said this, kind of the cream of the crop, present for our revisioning. And I'm just thrilled that Perkins Eastman is here. They were just outstanding, and I'm very excited about your presentation. And I'm also very thankful to all of our professionals who spent hours and hours, in meetings and in working this process. So it was definitely a group effort. Deputy Mayor, he did an outstanding job, and I think this really will be great for Millburn, and which is the bottom line. So with that,
the mayor, and the members of the council, and everyone who's come down to be here this evening. My name is Eric Bang. I'm a principal at Perkins Eastman. I'm here joined by my colleagues, partners, Susan Tabate from DFJ Planning, and online, Rissa Ortiz. She's the bottom photo on the right, video. Hi, Rissa. I wanted to just do a couple things. First is this, to introduce you to our team, tell you a little bit about ourselves, our background, and our organizations, and the resources that we bring to this effort. I wanted to share some initial impressions of the downtown. We've done a lot of homework, and we looked at, we walked the town, the downtown, and the surrounding areas. And finally, just tell you a little bit how we get the downtown. So we're going to go on to our first slide, Larissa. That's all of us. Okay. Perkins Eastman is an architecture and planning firm. We're based in New York City. We're a very diverse practice. We do everything from hospitals to multifamily residential to hotels and schools and so forth. The corner of the practice that I reside in is we focus on places, towns, and communities. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of the work that we've done in our practice, which is focusing on, because we're focusing on many different places throughout the country and throughout this region and New Jersey itself. Battery Park City is one of our hallmark projects. More recently, we've been responsible for a new district in Washington, D.C. called the District North on the Washington Channel. We've worked in other communities, smaller communities in the metropolitan area. Southampton is one of them. And then we've done diversity of different building types, from everything from smaller community civic buildings like the Millburn Park Library in Washington. This is the center picture is Innovation Cathedral that we recently completed for Audible.com. It's in downtown Newark. It was an old Presbyterian church that was converted for adaptive reuse to a tech center. Very, very interesting. And then on the right, a new community called Arbor by the Sea. And that's a picture on the lower right, partially obscured, that shows the environment that we created around the transit center. So we work in a lot of communities that have transit that have similar attributes, and we think that we can bring a lot of these experiences to downtown Millburn. So I guess one thing about our team before we go on to some of the impressions of the downtown is that we've all worked together. We worked together for many years. Each of us brings kind of a different perspective and different disciplinary focus. And one thing that I think is kind of unique is that each of us has also served on our local, and is serving, I think, continue to serve on our own local planning boards and commissions. So we know what it's like to be on the other side, and we know acutely, not only kind of from our professional perspective, but also from the public side, a lot of the different issues, particularly around building consensus and the process and so forth. So I think that gives us a little bit of more sensitivity to the issues that the township is running. So we move on to the downtown. One thing that's striking is really have everything, right? You have, go through a series of impressions of the downtown. Marissa, go on to the next slide. You have pedestrian friendly streets. They're very, very well scaled. The blocks are not too big. There's a lot of interest as you walk down the sidewalks. The sidewalks have a nice scale and feel. There's street trees going here. Next slide. There's smaller spaces, alleys that go back to the, extend to parking and parks and so forth. Advance the slide. You have culture, which is a very rare thing. Naperville Playhouse. You have entertainment. That's a rarity these days. Most of movie theaters are out in the Cineplex, someplace out on a strip somewhere. You have great parks, which is, again, a rarity because they come right into downtown. Next slide.
beautiful civic buildings with a lot of character. And you already have a mix of uses, different activities on the upper levels and the ground levels, something that has been a major trend of the last several years, and we already have all those things. So none of these things would be introduced as new or novel. So you have a lot of building blocks. Keep going. You also have diverse architecture. You have historic buildings, with a lot of historic character. You also have newer modern architecture. You have multi-level downtown parking, which is also kind of a holy grail for downtowns. And you even have the river, which could be a plague or it could be something that's, a wonderful asset. We think it could be something that could be harnessed for really great ends for the downtown. So, it's all there. This is the official study area. If you look at the core downtown area, it's all within a very easy 1,200-foot radius, which is basically, the distance that people would be willing to walk. If you look at most malls, they're about that distance because, people have studied through history. That's the comfortable walking distance, about 10 minutes, and keep going. There's development potential. There are vacant sites. Keep going, and then there are town-owned assets that may have other potential. That's one of the things that we're going to look at as well. Bring some of the different experiences that we've had and possibilities for reusing these types of facilities and properties. And right now, there's so much that we believe that is possible. Of course, it's a changing world that we're in right now. Nobody knows the future, particularly the current moment that we're in. And I'll tell you, when we started this process responding to the RFP, we were just at the beginning of this. And I think just in the past several months since that time, we've learned so much. And then we learned so much that we don't know as well. But we think that every predicament, every turning point, there's an opportunity. So next slide. So with that, I'd like to introduce Susan from Susan Badate, who's a partner at BFJ Planning.
Hi, thank you. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I live in Chatham next door, so I love Millburn. I'm here pretty often. I local movie theater. We really hope it'll open soon. So I'm very excited to be on this project, bringing my expertise to some place that I already know and love. BFJ Planning has been around since 1980. We are a full-service planning firm based in Manhattan. We actually share office space with Lincoln Eastman, so they're sort of like sister firms. We have five core practice areas. We have basic planning, and zoning. We do, I would say, about 2/3 of our work is for municipalities on the public side. Some work on the private sector, but heavily on the public side. We do a lot of design work, often in conjunction with Lincoln Eastman. We have environmental analysis that we do, real estate consulting, and then we have a transportation planning group. All of that can be brought to bear as appropriate on this project. Myself and 2 others have been primarily working on this. And we have some experience with the image on that slide showed you, we recently did a master plan update in Hoboken where we looked especially at their commercial zoning and implemented some zoning changes as a result of that. Next slide. So just to give you a sense of our overall approach and how we're sort of looking at this project, we wanted to give you kind of a case study of a community that we think is really comparable and show you sort of from planning to implementation kind of what could happen if you had a successful downtown plan. And I think overall our approach really is not intended to come in and drastically transform the downtown. Eric went through a compelling series of slides that really shows we have a great downtown already. And I think a lot of people really love it. All the pieces are here. It's in very good shape. And so I think our approach would be very surgical, looking primarily at the public realm. And by that, we mean what the sidewalks are like, what the park is like, how it all connects, what the public experience is as you're in the downtown area and traversing through the downtown. There are some opportunity sites that could offer themselves for future development. So for those, we look at what are the opportunities to do that type of development in a way that the community accepts and that the community is comfortable with. So a major part of that is building consensus and hearing from the community themselves. So Scarsdale, New York is a very comfortable community to you all. Most of you probably heard of it. It's Westchester County, about the same size, about the same distance on the rail line into Manhattan, very similar socioeconomically, and great school district as well. So here there are two sites in particular that our firms have been involved with over the years. The first one, just north of the train station, is Christie Place. And then more recently, BFJ has been involved in what's called the Freeway site. So there's a next slide, kind of go into these. Just this, we can go through these really quickly just to give you a flavor of Scarsdale. Obviously very beautiful, it's in great shape, really iconic downtown. So next slide. So Christie Place was an underutilized site, and about 10 or 12 years ago, Workers Eastman initially got involved working on the development side, working very closely with the town to do a public-private partnership. The town wanted to make sure that obviously the development was in keeping with their character. They wanted to get some public parking out as well. And the result was a senior living facility that you can see here. It's been built, and then there is public parking underground. It's actually been quite a success story, both on just the market side. It's full, very popular, and also from the public side. Other municipalities love the idea of get public parking and get a developer to pay for it. So and this is done in New York. We do not have the redevelopment law, so this was all done just with some basic incentives. Here in New Jersey, we have redevelopment that helps us even more and gives even more tools to communities and helps municipalities be in the driver's seat. So this is a good example of a success story. I think there's more on the next slide. You can just see, yeah. So the next site, which has been more recent in the last couple of years, BFJ was involved in a visioning plan for this Freeway site, which consists of a parking garage that is past its useful life, not very well loved by the community, and some surface parking, and it's literally right at the train station. So a real opportunity site that's been looked at many times over the decades, and it's just very difficult for the community to gather around a clear consensus for what to do with it. So the next slide, you see we engaged heavily with the community, lots of public workshops, walking tours, public surveys, looking at different options, presenting different scenarios, so the community could really get a sense of trade-offs, what was entailed in each option. And the culmination of that vision plan on the next slide, we will see is a set of principles, which really outlines the type of development that the community wanted to see. And the implementation side of this is that then we assisted the town with an RFP process for a developer who would come in and develop something on the site that was consistent with these principles and the overall vision plan. They did go out to RFQ and have some selected developer. I believe that process is ongoing. So again, a success story showing how on a couple sites you can impact a big change without drastically changing the entire downtown. You keep the core of what's there, but you improve on these underutilized sites. So as I said, a real key part of our process, and I think one of our major roles in this project, is building that consensus. And how do we do that, especially in an environment when we're challenged to meet in person? And we do feel strongly that a lot of the tools that we use usually in person, you can replicate in many communities to a large degree virtually if you do it the right way. And we actually invested early in the COVID process. We were already looking at technology to help us engage better with people virtually. So I'm just going to talk briefly about it in the next couple slides. Some tools. This is an example of the platform that we use. And that allows things like, here's an idea wall. Now, on the left, you see the in-person version of that. This was when we did master plan out in Parsippany. On the right, you can see the virtual version of that. It's actually really fun, and people get into it. You can comment, put a comment on the wall. You can react to a comment. We monitor all of this, so it's kept civil. And it's a very, very strong way to engage people. We think this type of platform can actually work very well in Millburn. So in the next slide, I'm going to turn it to Marissa, and I'll be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. So I'm pleased to be part of this team. I'm here with Street Sense. I serve as the managing director of our New York City office, and we are really a firm that's focused pretty exclusively on consumer-led environments. I've spent the last 20 years working 25 years now, working on Main Street and downtown environments. And at Street Sense, we have sort of a little bit like retail on steroids. You know, we think about research, we apply research to mall environments, shopping centers. We think through marketing and PR. So it's all the way from beginning to end through the creation of places, the transformation, the activation of spaces. And I'm personally very focused on the research side, which you'll see here. And our expertise sort of runs through real estate, hospitality, retail, food and beverage, workplace, and destinations. And those are all things that we find in downtown environments. And what I really want to talk about today, you know, since we submitted our proposal, a lot has changed. I think we have to acknowledge that. The pandemic has created, you know, significant closures. You know, I live in the city of New York and have worked with a number of downtown business improvement districts where the loss of office workers has decimated downtown businesses, particularly in the central business district. But that loss could potentially be Millburn's gain. Remote work and increased spending potential by people who are now staying at home during the day in spitting distance from the city, particularly if they only need to go in 1 or 2 days a week, create opportunities for you. And we're increasingly seeing through housing values and sales. There was an article, you know, 2 days ago in the New York Times about the move to suburbia, so the shift to suburbia and rising home prices. Whether that remains is a question, but it's certainly a trend we've identified now. We do recognize that we will continue to have to maintain delivery for businesses and that new business models have to be incorporated into some of our existing businesses if they're going to survive and thrive. And that also means supporting contact-free measures over time and helping businesses adapt to that. You know, we know that social distancing will remain for the short term. We don't know how long, but that to survive this period in time, we have to help businesses with that. And also see more opportunity in that there's a lot more local travel happening and people staying close to home, unable to get on the plane for vacation. And so they're having staycations. And towns like Millburn that are very quaint, great places to visit, become part of that short list. We do also see growth in tech adoption among businesses who are increasingly comfortable with these Zoom formats. And so, you know, what does that mean for investments in broadband, for instance? What does that mean for a city that wants to maintain and be competitive when businesses are making those kind of site location decisions? And all of this comes down to regaining consumer confidence through this period of the pandemic and as we go forward. And so, you know, as I think about it, I'm here to help you understand what is the market opportunity. We recognize we're in a really dynamic moment in time, and we're very excited to sort of bring all of the research that we've been doing and our sort of finger on the pulse of how this is changing and how it might be creating opportunities for you, and that will be our role in this project. And I pass it back to Eric.
Thank you, Susan. So I just want to talk a little bit to end this about our process of getting the job done. We plan to get this done in about a 5-month time period. We organize our work into 3 steps. The first step is an analysis. That's where we're trying to learn everything about the town, both through data, through talking to people, and also through just actually looking and observing and looking at drawings and looking at things in real life in real time. That to us is really the most important phase. That's really the phase that frames all of the really big problems that we're trying to solve. I think that a lot of times people get the impression, you know, if you work with architects, designers, planners, that you start to just draw them. And we find that the real challenge is defining what the problems are that need to be solved, rather than just getting pen to paper. You know, the second phase is options. So the conclusion of the analysis will define some of the key principles, planning principles, development principles for the downtown. And working off of those principles, we'll look at different variations. So we can give you all some choices and understand how things play out. At the conclusion of that, we'll all try to arrive at together preferred option, and then develop that preferred option to a greater set of detail, and then wrap that up into a plan. So a couple of things. One is, go to the next slide, is that at the end of each phase, at each milestone, we'll be having outreach at different levels. So Susan's really going to be working with the committee closely to design a process that, we want to have big opportunities to reach the most amount of people, but we also know that sometimes people are inhibited when they're in larger crowds. So we want to also have opportunities to have smaller forums and to have more candid and frank, sharing of opinions. So we'll be designing a process that hits, all those different levels of interaction and engagement. A couple of our tenets are really that everybody should start together. We're not going to be out and running and starting to draw things, come up with ideas before we talk to people. We want to build consensus as we go. So we're not going to wait, keep developing things and then, here it is. We want to make sure that every step of the way, everybody has had a good consensus. Our form definition doesn't mean that everybody agrees. It's not unanimity. Everybody needs to understand what the thought process is and there should be a general agreement of the direction that we're going. We built in pencils down period between each phase, so the township committee can talk amongst yourselves, make sure that you're all good and solid, and to comment on certain details so we can kind of fine tune ourselves as we go along. And then, the last thing I want to emphasize is that we are not starting with any kind of preconceived notion about the plan. We have impressions, and some of those impressions may be on the mark, some of them you may differ with. So, we want to listen. So that first phase is so important. We can listen and hear as many opinions as we can. And the other thing is that if you look at the first slide that I showed of our work, one thing that you'll notice is that all of the work that we showed in all the different locations, they all look different. So we're not a firm that has a signature style. I think the hallmark of what we do, at least the corner of the office that I practice in, is that we are really trying to channel the special qualities of the place, whether it's Washington, D.C. or New York City or Southampton or Hoboken or wherever. And so that's what we want to try to find out. We want to make something that's authentically Millburn, right? So it has to resonate with history, with the direction of how the sun comes in, the scale of your streets, and so forth. So that's what kind of gets us animated, and that's what we want to achieve. And people, last thing, just philosophically, is people. First President Bush said the vision thing, right? So people kind of get intimidated. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's not something that we interpret as something that's bestowed, this is a vision from on high. We actually think of ourselves more as your pencils. So this is a community-driven vision, and we're just there to kind of put form to it, because that's what we know how to do it. With that, I'm going to wrap up. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Paul?
Yeah, so I just want to say, and just to echo what Tara said in her introduction, that the township received 6 proposals, which I thought was really, really good, particularly since they came right smack in the middle of COVID-19. And I will say that I was personally familiar with 5 of the 6 proposers, including all 4 who were interviewed. And I can say that each of the firms interviewed basically was highly qualified and reputable in this field. I will say that the Perkins Eastman team is a very strong multidisciplinary team. I do believe that they bring to you the right mix of professionals to undertake the downtown vision plan on behalf of the township. They have expertise in public engagement, in downtown planning and revitalization, in urban design. And as you heard, and this is critical, I think, for downtown Millburn, in sort of real estate advisory and market feasibility. And I think most importantly, in relation to the sort of today's challenging retail environment, and particularly in a downtown context, which again, I think was critical, not only to myself, but the entire selection committee. So with that said, I would add my voice of support to the Perkins Eastman team.
Thank you, Paul. Any members of the committee have questions for?
Eric, I have some questions. So I want to say your presentation was beautiful, pictures are beautiful. I'm not the voice of the naysayer. I just have to be a voice of getting some other questions out there, because if we all five agree on everything, then that's maybe not great policy either, right? Sure. So this is a few questions. Okay, so this is being funded, the $200,000 bid from the surplus, correct?
This is the
contract.
Yeah, the project is proposal of $189,000. It's going to be taken out of the capital improvement fund as a preliminary planning.
So that's not out of the surplus.
Not a budget driver.
Okay. Okay, so Tara answered why the original interview panel was more people, and then you narrowed it down to this Tara, Richard, and you, Alex, for the final decision of the two committees, of the two finalists. And why was not all of the panelists involved in that portion? I just want to clear for full public transparency.
Well, I can
Okay, sure.
It was just more of a scheduling, and we had already gone through where everybody enumerated who they thought in order, and it had when we go back and look at that, everyone's clear that actually Perkins Eastman was of everybody, it was the top #1 choice. Yeah, so it was, you know, and then when we did it, it was the timing, it was scheduling. We didn't feel like we needed to pay our professionals at that point to be in the meeting. We felt like we had a good enough handle on what was going on as we went through the whole process.
So Jorge and Beth Dahl.
They were
and
not
Dan Bear.
They were not part of.
Okay. So Dan Bear is very involved in this process, in the initial interview.
I didn't say he was very involved. I would say that I did. Why are we talking about that?
Just because I know Dan Bear is for the original 2007 plan.
Okay, yeah, so, hold on. So, and are you concerned about the fact that Dan Bear did a plan back in, I mean, do you want to give the history of what happened?
I don't really know the whole history for you.
But I know parts of it, but what are you concerned about?
I'm just saying, I know Dan Bear was very instrumental in the 2007 downtown revisioning, and then for some reason it never happened.
Right. Well, I wasn't here at the time, but I think that like if you're concerned about, I'm still not like understanding about.
I just in talking about the rest of that, I didn't know how any of this process was working.
But I've been reporting on it like along the way, every meeting. But it's okay. So let's so go on. So yes.
Okay. I know Dan Bear was very involved in something that was important to him. The township will be working with Mazer, our consulting, so our traffic engineer, correct?
That's correct. Mazer was written into the RFP to work with whoever the recommended and selected firm was as the township on-call traffic engineer.
Okay, so that's important to know. And they're a company that's been with Millburn a long time. So there are, I spoke to you about this, Alex, some redundancy that they will help with the SID, because we always talk about zoning and parking and things that the SID is going to be involved with. Will you be working with this newly established SID if it continues?
We want to talk to all parties that are relevant for downtown.
Something here, it says the respondent selected by and approved by the township committee will ultimately assist the township committee and subcommittee in preparation of the downtown business district vision plan for Millburn Township, which shall be completed within 6 months. Do you still think that was your estimation before the pandemic, or even once you knew the pandemic was going to affect everything so negatively?
The timeframe.
The timeframe is 6 months. If this contract goes through and you start this process, is 6 months a reasonable time to get this entire scope of work done?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Working with municipally owned properties, underutilized may require consolidation, replacement, or relocation. I mean, we've discussed that our firehouse and our police building and this building is very old. So that would be part of this whole revisioning, possibly. I mean, you don't have any preconceived notions, possibly a municipal complex.
No, I mean, I think the one thing that we bring is experience, navigating towns such as Millburn through that process. The process is quite, it's quite complex. It's quite weighty. Particularly, you have a fairly large piece of property, and so we bring knowledge and experience of the process, but we also bring experience with similar types of properties in our design work, so we know what the types of possibilities are.
And you said the towns where Scarsdale is the most similar to Millburn.
That's just one that we.
That's one example. New Canaan, Connecticut is another good comp. We did a downtown plan for them and also some of their municipal facilities. And we're all over Westchester.
All over New Jersey.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
towns comparable.
Yes.
It's really important. So it says here, provide progress updates on a monthly basis with at least 2 meetings specifically reporting to the township committee, subcommittee, or other group established by the governing body. I just didn't understand what these other group would be.
Well, that's something that I think that we're going to roll up our sleeves, sit down with committee to design a process that we feel reaches, as I said, appropriately engages people at different levels, larger groups, smaller groups. I mean, I'll tell you, there are also, we need to talk to township staff, public works and so forth. Will certain things fly? How does the township operate? Every town is different. Every city is different. So, so on a technical level, those things are important. We want to talk to different stakeholders, merchants, property owners, residents. So we just want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and we're hearing the most diversity of opinions.
The other thing, the proposal should include an hourly fee for additional services not listed in the scope of the project. I'm sure you've heard about our experience with arterial, and there was, okay, maybe that's good. But there was a lot of overages and unexpected expenses that took the contract way out of what it originally was. So I think that's a concern. That would be a concern to me as such a committee person who's going to be responsible for how this money is going to be allocated and spent. So is there, what additional services not listed but in the scope of the project could be billed? Just give a couple examples.
I would say on a project like this, we can stay pretty focused.
Okay.
But sometimes the response to queries from whomever it might be, how do you know X, Y, and Z, and you prove such and such, and sometimes additional studies are required, additional research. So sometimes those types of things will come up, but we would not ever engage in anything in advance of having prior approval. The proposal process is
pretty controlled and watched over. We had a town did have a rather unfortunate experience.
We've spent a lot of time on the scope and really refining that and trying to make sure it's as tight as possible so that everybody understands what's involved.
Two other things. On your project understanding, it said the goal should be to reorient traffic patterns to transform downtown from a place to drive through to a place to drive to anymore. Is this specifically referring to Millburn? reorient traffic. I mean, that was part of our problem. You know, it's very, the only place to reorient traffic to is into the surrounding neighborhoods. Which proved, you know, very problematic.
I think it's to reorient the, you know, the attitude about traffic. You know, I'm not, again, we're not saying this street should go this way and that street should go that way, but that embodies our philosophy, which is that there are some towns that are drive-through, and you know the object is just to get through the town as quickly as possible. And those tend not to be the most walkable, charming places that you could do. And there are some that you drive. Sorry, I'm just repeating the words, but that you drive to, and then you know you want to get out, you want to walk around, you know, you want to stay there. And you know, our impression is that that's the special quality that downtown Millburn has. So you know, I think that said, it's in the middle of a big region, and so you know we have to balance these things.
Right. The executive committee are the primary decision-making client group. Is that the steering committee?
You know, sometimes we use different terms.
Right, I know this is like not, I don't know if this was all specifically reacted to a Millburn.
Right. Well, yeah, it was, but what the terms that we are eventually going to arrive at, I think it is one and the same as the because ultimately you need one, you're going to meet with different groups,
right?
Different sizes and different formats and so forth, but ultimately you need one body that's, you know, they're the decision makers.
And two, as the last thing, I know that your initial bid came down by almost a third because of some environmental concerns. You do have a very active environmental committee, as you see from this, our Boy Scout tonight. So if, I know in a lot of our planning board meetings, a couple of the people on the board are always very concerned with lead, what's it called? Lead, not lead, obviously, lead. So I mean, if those things come back into play, that would be addressed, but obviously that would kind of go beyond the scope of what.
You know, we all come from larger organizations, and we bring pretty broad breadth of expertise within Perkins Eastman South DOJ, and so a certain level of sustainability strategies we just do in-house.
You know, okay.
What we had originally anticipated was possibly bringing in specialists just to deal with stormwater issues and flooding. And I said, you know, we brainstormed with them. I'll give them a plug. I'm sure we're design engineers, so really crack, smart guys. And you know, we've brainstormed with them, so we have some other ideas.
Okay, that was good.
and you know, they've actually they volunteered to consult with us, bounce ideas off. So we're all kind of colleagues and friends.
And the last question, I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. How does this all fit in with what Millburn's prospective affordable housing is going to be? Like, there's things we can't answer now because we don't have our numbers. We're still in, situations. So how does that play into all of your planning for us?
Well, I think the first step for me is speaking to your professionals to get I know what I read in the papers, but I don't pretend to know anything more than that. So to get a sense of where you are in the process, what's the context, because that is a very important element to have an understanding of what the township's ongoing obligation is going to be. So it's not the housing element in the fair share plan, but that does need to be reflected in I think what we do and understood and reported.
Right. It would be nice if we had that number. Everyone's asking.
It would,
and
we
we
don't.
don't.
But unfortunately, we can't control the timing of courts and discussions.
I know. Thank you. I just had all these questions, and I really appreciate your just being frank and forthcoming. Thank you.
And I just want to add that during the process, we actually spent a lot of time on the scope, and it was one of my concerns that we not, that there not be extra expenses, or that's something that we wouldn't, think about. So I think we have a very good understanding in terms of what's being spent. If there is a request for, if there was some type of extra request for funds, I mean, you guys would come to us first, and weren't asked first, so we know, crazy bills coming in that we wouldn't know about. Basically, what encapsulates the whole process, unless there's something that pops up.
I guess I did have a lot of questions. I think at one point Alex told me that either you or Tara would be reaching out to me to have us sit down and give me a lot of information, but I didn't hear from either of you. I asked directly, and someone's going to the horse's mouth just as well. I know. Would have been nice if heard from one of you.
And that's okay. One thing that I just want to add, because I know that this has come up a lot in our affordable housing discussions and just different ideas that are being out, but one of the things that we engage in our parents is, and Susan had even mentioned it, with the possibility of doing 55 and more housing. So on that field, that is, everybody's aware of all the conflicts and issues that we are dealing with in this moment. Litigation and all that. So, thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for that. I just have one question.
Yes, and then after the township committee finishes, we will take some calls and some questions from the public. What was your most challenging from a community? You don't have to tell me which community, but what was the biggest hurdle that you had to engage in your tenure with the community?
Well, I'm sure we all have different stories.
Yeah, and so with the confidentiality, I don't want to know the town, but what was the biggest, and how did you overcome it?
We had done a lot of work, this is from my perspective, after Sandy. And I think that was really tough because people just wanted to get back into their homes, they just wanted to rebuild their communities. And we have some expertise in what's called resilience, which is building for the long term. And, I think that the thing that we realized was that you can't just, that sometimes you can't just rebuild exactly what you have. It's rushed out. So that was very important, trying to keep people's eyes sighted on the big picture, but also being very aware of the short term. So I think, there might be some parallels. Right now, it's just like this huge cataclysm, right? And so we can't just look at the long term anymore, that people are going through tremendous pain and, a huge change that no one's seen before. It's not unlike Sandy, right? At that time, nobody had experienced anything like that in generations. So I think that was one of the big, most challenging things that we had to do.
I had one recently where it was a project that engagement was a very significant part of. This particular community was about 50 or 60% Latino. So engaging the Spanish-speaking population is extremely important, particularly since it was a downtown revitalization plan, and many of the small business owners were of that community. And we had a whole plan and process that we started, but it became very clear within about one or two that we just weren't hearing from them, we were not seeing, and we were not reaching that community. And then we were starting to get some negative feedback on that we weren't working hard enough. And so we really pivoted, and I think that's needs to be an important part of every engagement strategy, is that you need to be able to be flexible, and when something's not working, change it up. And so we did a lot of very targeted outreach to individual people within that community who were trusted, who were sort of liaisons into the community. We had an all Spanish meeting in the church. We'd always translated many things, but we translated everything. We had in-person translators at the meetings, to the point where these people who were initially angry with me were hugging me at the end of the process, and we're very happy, and I think felt like they were allies. It was a successful process, but it took a lot to get there, and we were committed to that. We wanted to make sure that we worked with them.
One last question. I see we have a couple of merchants here from uptown, and we have an Upper Millburn Avenue. So this is all about the downtowns. I think we also have to keep in mind that we do have, I don't know how many of those 17% of empty storefronts are uptown. I think we have to be really cognizant that we do have three other sections. We have Chatham Road, we have Upper Millburn Avenue, and we have Morris Avenue. And I wonder if 70% of those vacancies are from there too. Right, but I'm saying we have to really be very important not to leave out a really important area that we want to grow.
Can I just speak to that? Because we were, like, talking about this and putting the scope that actually isn't in the scope. And but the thinking was like, let's start here and then let's do that. So I agree with you that I do not want to ignore our other business districts, and they absolutely need to be addressed. And this is a 5-month process, so hopefully this will be really successful. And then everyone will say, all right, let's do it again for the others.
No, and I'm saying, right, what I mean is while we're designing and scoping and thinking and, visioning, let's not forget that they will be affected by whatever happens, as well as the neighborhood. Yeah.
No, that's an important part of the analysis, also to understand the downtown's place within Millburn,
right,
and the other business districts, as well as your surrounding communities. I mean, every downtown around us is going through a lot of the same things, and in some ways are a bit of a competition, but also perhaps some lessons learned, best practices. So we'll be looking at all of that.
And I love that you live in the next town, literally, so you really do know. You have to come from Upper Millburn Avenue to come to our downtown.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
Just came tonight.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, at this time now, we'll take comments from the public. Please keep in mind that we're going to limit those questions to 3 minutes to give each person adequately. You can stay right where you are, sir. Stay right where you are. You don't have to come to the podium because of COVID. I'm sure you can see.
Everybody else did, Boy Scouts did. The Boy Scouts did.
We've done that.
Yeah.
You should be on the microphone.
Come to the microphone. And come to the microphone. The sign that I have.
Good evening.
Yes.
Good to see everybody, sort of. Number one, thanks for the presentation. You're not going to be doing any real estate renting. You're not going to find tenants for vacant storefronts, correct? That's not what you do? Okay. What's the average hourly rate that you're trying to charge for all this service?
It's a cumulative rate and it's a flat, it's a fixed fee.
So it's one price, 200,000 out the door.
189.
189,000 out the door. Done. Yes, I'm taking that as a yes. $189,000 for their work.
We just told you that, yes.
Okay. Next question is, when the committee was doing the due diligence and interviewing all of the other responders to the request for proposal, did the due diligence include the lawsuits against Perkins Eastman, including the one that was just settled for involving the wharf project for $1.2 billion that they just settled in March? Was that part of the due diligence? They were actually sued for negligence.
Okay, so I will answer that, and,
Okay.
and I will say that no, that was not part of the.
They were sued for professional negligence and they paid a big settlement. This company,
So do
that's
you have
here today.
excuse me, do you have a question?
My question is, did your due diligence, was there due diligence? And if there were, did it include knowing that they've been sued successfully for professional malpractice?
So I just answered you saying that no. Do you have a question for Perkins? Or you
Yes.
just up here to make a statement?
Well, the question is, you admit that you were sued for malpractice for the wharf project?
No, I don't know the details.
Is that a yes or a no? You know about the lawsuit?
I don't know the details.
But you know about the lawsuit.
I know about litigation, but I don't know anything about any.
You know that your company was sued for professional malpractice. You don't know. You know about a lawsuit, but you don't know that they were sued for malpractice.
I know there was litigation.
The question should be addressed. Thank
Okay,
you.
the question is, they were sued for malpractice. They just settled in March. This isn't their first time being sued for malpractice. They were also sued
Thank you for
in
your
earlier
comment.
lawsuits.
Thank you for your comment. Next question, please.
Any questions or something?
Yes, this This is questions only related to Copeland's, not, and the proposal.
First of all, thank you all for your volunteer effort. This is a thankless position. And it was really nice of you to get an opportunity to the scouts. I know all three of them. They're great young men, so I really appreciate that. I am struck by the focus on downtown, despite the bid being all business districts. Important to see some exchange that we need to keep the other parts of town in focus. I also heard a lot about development, and I have some pause about focus on development rather than duplication or other traffic flow or other things, because some of the development that's already happened is leading to more growth in our schools than projected. Already out by the mall, instead of the original 40 students, we're at 140 and counting. And did you know over the last 30 years that in Westfield?
Wait, how do you have numbers about the mall? Where did you get those numbers?
It's in, well,
Wait,
I
wait,
pause
wait.
my clock, you're taking my time here. So,
When you
no,
say
you're
the
taking
number,
my time now.
when you
All
say
right,
the number,
over the last 30 years in Westfield, the student population in the high school grew by 30%. In Summit, it grew by 60%.
You have a number for
Excuse
Mac
me, it's my
Valley?
time.
That's fine, but I want to know
In
where you got the
Chatham,
number for
it
Mac
grew by
Valley.
nearly 80%. In Chatham, where I grew up, had a lot more open land.
what is the question?
In Millburn, our student population in our high school has grown by over 85%. Lots more development is going to grow more student population in our schools. In Chatham, they've done school capacity studies to know how much more development they can handle. So while I applaud a visioning exercise, I'd like to know if we have any information or planning or projection on the school age population and the impact on our schools. We don't yet. And that's not your fault. That's something that the township committee should be coordinating with the school board to do a capacity
You sit,
study.
actually, I sit as a liaison with the school board. So what is your name again?
Volpicelli.
Volpicelli. I think that you are spouting a lot of misinformation right now and a lot
Do
of
you have a
numbers.
capacity study? You don't. You don't.
Actually-
Chatham has. We don't.
But I want to know about the Mac Valley apartments. I'm amazed that you have a number of 104 students coming in from up there. Where did you get that from?
140, I believe that's the last
140?
they stated.
From who? From who?
Well, you guys do
From
your, you guys do your diligence.
who?
This
So-
information
This is unbelievable.
is not accurate.
I mean, you've
Well,
been
so
out
do you
here
have it?
live, you are.
Do you have it? Does the school have it?
What is your source of your information?
So you guys find out.
All right, do you have questions
The
for
school
the
board. I did.
staff?
I asked whether they had any information on the planning for.
Amazing. Are you running for
student aid
township committee this year?
I am. Thank
Okay,
you.
lovely.
And so I want to know
Thank you so
what
much for
else you
standing
guys
up
are
here.
working on.
Thank you so
Thank
much for your
Yeah.
comment and for standing up here. These are questions for our planner and then we're going to move on. You have one?
I haven't even got my questions
Just,
ready.
I'm just stating what's going on right now.
My name is Jeffrey Jones. I have two questions. First, you used the word many times, consensus. How do you define that term? How do you gauge the word consensus in the business community into like local areas? The other one is like, you can tell me some references. What communities have you serviced in New Jersey that had a train station and had unmet affordable housing needs? So we at least can see an example of your good work.
The purpose of the vision plan is not to address affordable housing.
No. Oh, I'm just asking where they did work before, so we could gauge the work product. Because one of the issues I've not raised before, one of the first words they used was transit center. They didn't mention they have
We
to
have
factor
two
in.
train stations, Mr. Bell.
I didn't ask, the question is geared to them. How do they define the term consensus? Who else have they worked for in New Jersey that had a train station and had an unmet affordability need? Because that's part of the project they said they had to factor in. That's what she said before.
Questions only or may I make this?
Wait, Eric, I think is going to respond to Mr. Bell.
Well, you talked about that, I guess the word consensus in the presentation. And you say it's not unanimity, if that's not possible, right? But I think that in my way of working, what we always seek is that everybody understands the issues very clearly. not everybody's going to agree, and that as we go along, that we frame the problems so they're very hidden kind of agendas. And, if there is an agreement amongst, the clients and the people who are, making the decisions, who are surely answerable. Typically, when we work with the public sector, they're answerable. Then we move forward. We try to, at each stage, also make sure that we have opportunities to check. Right? So, at the end of our analysis, which is very important, so you guys should pay attention to that. That's we set out the big picture and have parameters. Options figured, so we'll test those. Because different things mean different words and different things. So that's what I mean. It's not a dictionary definition, but that's kind of our process. And it's work.
And in terms of communities that are dealing with affordable housing, I mean, this is not an affordable housing study. Obviously, it's an important component. It's an important thing that we need to take into consideration. I don't see it as the driver of this plan. The most recent community I've been involved with, unfortunately, doesn't have a train station. The person in Fort Hills has a very significant affordable housing process that they've gone through. A little bit farther along than you guys, they had a number and they've actually settled. But we've been involved with them in terms of their affordable housing plan and shepherding that through. I sit on the Chatham Affordable Housing Committee, so we've done, we've had some of the same issues you all have, in thinking about, future development opportunities in downtown. And it's in the newspapers, you can look at it. We looked at that in the past. And the affordable housing component is one aspect. It's an opportunity to maybe pick up some of your obligation, but it's not the driver.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
Thank you. Amy, yes.
I can,
Yes, please.
so, Amy Lawrence, 36 Hawthorne Road. I am here from my professional and personal experience to speak in favor of the vision plan from 20. So first off, full disclosure, right, and transparency. I have volunteered to be on the steering committee for the vision plan. And my reason for volunteering is not about, about me personally or about politics or any of this stuff, but because I have volunteered in the past for a related committee. And I think it's just very valuable and important for our community, the particular project we're talking about. So a little bit about me. I have 20 years of professional experience relevant to this project. I work in commercial real estate. I do strategic planning in real estate. I do public and private funding, financing of real estate. I worked as a consultant to nonprofit organizations, arts, education, healthcare, etc., advising them on real estate matters. I currently manage a portfolio of retail leasing in the Northeast, and I manage all of my company's real estate transactions in Latin America. So I do lots of deals.
Got 1 minute.
Sorry, I'm running out of time. Enough about who cares about me. The point is, back in 2017, some folks in the London section said, Amy, you know what's going on here with the affordable housing, blah, 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 blah. I started doing township committee meetings. I love what's going on. This seems to really, I work with developers, but I don't necessarily really support development. At the time, Mayor Burstein asked for volunteers from the committee, from the community to participate. And then this is my time. Maybe someone else will give me.
You still have 30 seconds.
Right. So Mayor Burstein said she's looking for volunteers. So I volunteered, and Mayor Burstein appointed me to the ad hoc committee for the DPW relocation project, the potential of doing that. So I joined that committee, which continued under Mayor Elo, which you were supportive of, and rightfully so, to think about, could we move what we call the dump site to another location, which has been going on for a long time, right? This conversation, but can we move it somewhere else and use that for something better for the community? And that something better could be community facility, could be parking, it could be senior housing, et cetera, et cetera. So we went through a long process of that. And there are ways to if a relocation of an appropriate receptor site could be found, there are ways to do that. That's the challenge. But there are things that could be done where you put the property back on the tax roll, where you develop something or you use it for something beneficial to the community. Did I help?
No.
Could I have somebody else's time? I know, but someone could just use that. Thank you. Sorry, respectfully. You know, it can be used for something else, go back on the tax roll. You could retain control of the site, do a ground lease, you know, with an RFP. The town can maintain control of the site and it can become beneficial for the town, right? So, but the thing about that is that you can't look at that in isolation. Right, you can't, what became obvious to me and other people, right, is that you can't just say, okay, we're just gonna think about this one site and, you know, not think about the decaying infrastructure that's behind it, right? Or what's across the street from it, or down the road at the parking, right? So you have to think of it more holistically. And to me, that's what this particular vision plan does. It's appropriate, and you need to look at, you know, the aesthetics and the traffic and all of that together, right? And so, like, just a final note from like my consulting days, we used to talk about being intelligently opportunistic, right? So I would do planning with my clients. We would have a plan, and then as things came along, opportunities, we would know, does that fit in our plan and our vision, or does it not? Because we knew what we wanted to do. But if you don't know first what you want to do and what that vision is, things come along and then you scramble and you go, oh, well, you should, you're not focused and you're not. So I think this is a very good thing, which is why I volunteered and I support it.
Thank you.
Why did I hire you?
I should have hired you.
I can't now, I don't do that anymore. But sure.
Anybody else have a comment with respect to the Perkins Eastman plan?
Mayor, we have 2 people on Zoom and then a number of people from the back room.
With this Perkins Eastman?
It could be public comments.
Okay, well, okay, then we're only taking, well, then we're gonna, if they're not.
I'm not sure until they get on.
Okay, so we're gonna close this Perkins Eastman period and we're gonna proceed with public comment. Perkins Eastman, thank you very much for coming this evening.
Can you just post the presentation on the website?
Yeah, there's a website off,
Yeah, so all this information is live on the website now, under the business tab on the homepage, which people can go and view. And we'll add once they share the presentation. We'll add this.
Okay. We're gonna just take a 2-minute recess in between.
Sorry, Kate, you have a question?
Okay. All right, we'll take this question. You wanna go? No, we're gonna wait. Okay. On Perkins Eastman, on this
We
presentation?
were just told we could come in about 20 minutes ago, and then they told us we couldn't until somebody here told us we could. Now you close down the comment.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Is it Perkins Eastman?
You can come right there.
Oh, speak right here. Your man.
Otherwise, it won't be on the recording.
I thought I heard you say Monday.
But other people.
It's okay. I'm Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I did a quick search and I saw the first thing I saw was that there was a lawsuit.
Yes, we already have discussed that.
We discussed that.
It was already discussed. It was mentioned, it was discussed.
No, there wasn't any discussion. I mean, I've been here the whole time. I tried to listen as carefully as we could with the video screen there. I didn't hear any mention of it. I'm sorry.
I think you can just make your statement, that's fair.
Excuse me?
Make your statement, I believe that would
Yeah,
be fair.
I would like to understand
I'm sorry,
why
Madam
you're engaging someone who just settled a lawsuit over a $1.2 billion project. That's my question. Thank you.
They should bring their lawyers here so we can talk to the lawyers.
Anybody else? You have a question with respect to Perkins? Okay, we're gonna, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Perkins. We're gonna take a 5-minute break for our committee.
Stretch break.
Just keep in mind, you're still being live streamed.
I just saw you charging here. Yeah. I'll be with you. I know.
That's the officer in the main lawyer area. Unfortunately, not so much.
Take a break.
It's really, I mean, I'm gonna make sure that
Well, I mean, I do know. It takes time. Yeah, I hear that. Thank you. I don't think so. Oh, no,
So who you work with?
Well,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A little missed our recent chili night, but you know.
Chilly night.
Yeah, it's not really chili.
Well, I still have some for you.
But,
I would like some,
maybe they'll come here this week. Nice marinara.
yeah, I think home cooked would be good too. I try not to do pasta.
I mean, the way 2020 is going, I've decided I'm not really planning for more than like 3 months in advance at this point. So,
That's true.
we'll see what happens.
I love the new saying, oh, that's so 2020, and everything goes to crap.
You know, it's such a young starts this year, right? 2020 is when the first big monster attacks on the year of the horror.
No,
So I guess you know what's happening.
I don't know, I guess so. Oh, September's here. This is September 1st.
Oh,
I know. Okay.
Right at the tail end of it.
Sorry, Matt.
No, it's okay.
Joe, unless you want to stick around, we're okay. I think we're good.
Okay.
You want to mint?
I'm just gonna get my.
You want to mint, Jackie?
Wow. Do that again. No, no, it's audio. It's gonna be like a phone call. Yeah, just audio.
We will now continue. Public comment. When invited to speak, come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address and speak loudly so your comments may be understood and properly recorded. This is a Zoom webinar option for those who could not attend the meeting in person. Please state your name and address. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the township clerk. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when 30 seconds are remaining. Remember, this is a business meeting, and we must address professionals or staff directly. All comments are directed to me. I will also mention that for those who do not comply, you will be asked to leave and escorted out of the building. For all TC members, please address me as the chair. Thank you. Now we'll take a question from the audience first, and then we'll go to the video.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Phil. I'm a resident of 11 Alexander Lane, Fort Hills. Earlier this evening, I want to identify myself. I am the person that filed the notice of the civil rights violation court claim. So everyone knows in town, I'm the person in question, whether our rights as to a robust marketplace of free ideas was violated at the last meeting. My comments really are, I want to focus before we heard about consensus, but also we've been hearing about how open and transparent we are. And I want to look at the agenda. On the agenda, there's a bill list. There's only a total. In various other communities, they attach the backup. That's very important because the community where my business was located was orange. And through the bill list, we discovered various acts of malfeasance. And I would just ask going forward that the bill list, the backup, that you get, the public has. In addition, there's a question of when we get the right to see the agenda actual packet. Under your website, it's only 3 hours before the meeting. Earlier today, I sent you the DCA guidelines, 48 hours. If you're posting your agenda, why can't we have the underlying documents 48 hours before so we can give intelligent questions? Because when you talk about open transparency, that's a very simple one. In the last 3 weeks, when we got more involved in the SID issue, I went back to the minutes in January. And I discovered that you retained a criminal defense firm in connection with a federal preliminary investigation. That's what the detention resolution said. It was shocking. Because we don't really have investigative reporting, no one ever picked that up. I mean, that's kind of pretty important that you're hiring an outside defense firm for some kind of federal investigation. That goes back to transparency. Make sure we can have access to the documents. I want us to avoid being classified by Englewood Cliffs. Because in August last year, Englewood Cliffs was found to have acted bad faith with housing. This past weekend, their mayor gave a high school student a bill for $2,500 for Black Lives Matter. We don't want to be in the same place. I believe you have an easy access ground as to what occurred at the last meeting. Please look at it. You have the issues I set forth. There's a constitutional issue that we have. Because you're using to fund taxpayers' money, my taxpayers' money, I don't have business downtown, to fund your city for 16 months, there's a question whether we violate certain prohibitions of the state constitution. I have heard no one address that issue yet. Everyone's been focusing, with all due respect, a sideshow Bob issue as to Congress. There's real issues as consensus. Did you have Biden? I beat a SIG in Orange because they did not have it. You talk to Jeff Bueller. There's really issues. We should not be wasting money litigating issues like this. We don't want to have a test case as to transparency, civic participation. Because of what the rules are, what's happening in Orange, in Millburn today by Zoom, not giving us 48 hours notice, especially when you now admitted today, you appointed people to a bidding city that wasn't even in existence. It didn't come into existence for like 2 weeks or after that. Do you really want to go into court and lose your goodwill? Hi, my name is Richard Fuller, 333 Millburn Avenue. Meredith Jackson, Benjamin Lieberberg, committee members. Oh, excuse me for 1 second. Okay, Mayor Lieberberg and Committee Wasserman. Regarding the SID assessment, you have asserted that the average property would experience an annual assessment of approximately $600 when the assessment is imposed beginning 2022. You appear on Zoom and YouTube saying that. I was recently copied an email in which Millburn Township CFO was asked, please explain in detail, including calculations, as to how the commercial property owner will be taxed in 2022 with the newly adopted SID assessment in accordance with August 11, 2020 Township Committee approval. His answer was, here is how SID calculation will work. Property assessment times rate times percent commercial equals SID assessment. Rate is based on the budget divided by the total assessment of qualifying properties in the district. The key is the budget we would have no way to know for sure until the SID introduces a budget to the Township Committee, but estimates have been made based on the 2018 EMDA budget. I hope this helps. Jason. If the SID were to borrow funds for improvements, this is after this comment, and begin to repay loans and grants, that will become part of the assessment and be passable to the tenants. How does that help businesses? Early in the process, the Township Committee was prepared to start the SID operations beginning in January 2021. What was the cause to rush to start early? It has become clearer that the SID ordinance is not about helping business, but rather Millburn satisfying requirements and becoming a transit building. Why was that never discussed during all of the info sessions and Township Committee meetings regarding the creation of the SID? Nobody is ignoring the obligation to affordable housing. However, residents have been vocal about their objections to the Woodland Road plan, the construction adjacent to the Short Hills Mall, and the Wells Fargo property. Why wouldn't Millburn Township address this obligation through zoning rather than put another burden on commercial property owners and businesses? Why wouldn't the residents be given the opportunity to weigh in on such an important township issue? And Transit Village would guarantee more construction. Tell me how that would help the businesses that are still reeling in complete streets in the pandemic. About multiple housing, school enrollment will increase. Developers may opt to negotiate pilots, paying in lieu of taxes. The school budget will be negatively impacted while the enrollment increases. From all that I have read on the topic, there is no guarantee how much, if any, contribution the Board of Education will realize from pilots. Who will make up the difference to the school budget? Commercial and residential property owners. As a side note,
As properties convert to multiple housing projects, they will be removed from the SID assessment goals, as they will no longer be classified as commercial. The result will be greater assessment being divided into a smaller number of commercial properties, thus increasing the assessment portion on any one commercial property. Are the members of the SID's Board of Trustees and the Advisory Board included under Millburn Township's liability insurance company? Has the SID DMC been officially recognized by the IRS as a 501c3? Are each of you personally knowledgeable regarding the requirements of the IRS for the qualifications necessary to be designated as a 501c3? Are each of you personally knowledgeable at what is stated in Title 15A? SIDs are supposed to be self-help, self-financing mechanisms. Self-help has been stripped away as the stakeholders have no say in anything, including the ability to elect representation by those who will be expected to pay. With self-help being stripped away, the term self-financing becomes an oxymoron. There is no buying. Are each of you personally knowledgeable to the contents of NJSA 40:56-65, 2003? You need to rescind ordinance 2561-20. Thank you.
Let's take some calls from the.
First one, G.
Jade should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jade Wicker. I live at 85 Rector Street. I'm a former Millburn student and I recently graduated with the class of 2020. My friend Henry Noel Finn and I wrote a letter 2 months ago to the Township Committee highlighting the existing racial inequities that exist in Millburn. We wrote this letter in hopes of encouraging the Township Committee to support its Black community, not only by enacting reform, but by raising a Black Lives Matter flag in front of Town Hall. We also created a petition online that received close to 300 signatures and almost 1,000 views from Millburn residents. Black Lives Matter is not about Marxism or fascism or communism or terrorism, as some Millburn residents choose to believe. Black Lives Matter is about ending police brutality against Black and brown people in America. Not only is it about reforming the corrupt justice system in this country and ending racial discrimination and inequities, but it's also about ending racial discrimination and inequities. Many residents of Millburn like to believe that we live in a perfect community where anyone can call the police and know that they'll ensure our safety, but that's not the case for all our residents. Many residents believe we live in a community where we can wave to our friendly on-duty officers, but for the minority here, we fear being racially profiled and interrogated as we walk down Millburn Ave or make our way to work or to school. While the majority don't have to worry about being turned away by local realtors, the minority worries about it constantly. Most Millburn students have teachers who look like them and don't realize until later on that the minority of students never even see one teacher who looks like them during their time in Millburn. While yes, Millburn is a lovely community and is mostly welcoming, with great people who make each other feel safe, we can all see that we need to try harder to make this a place where Black people feel safe and welcome too. With that being said, we ask you to adopt this policy that was shared with the Township Committee and raise a Black Lives Matter flag in front of Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to do another one from Zoom, and then we'll do the user.
Can you all hear me? All right. My name is Henry Noel Finn. I live at 14 Pine Terrace East. I am a member of Millburn High School class of 2019. The policy that was sent to you on flag raising that Jade and I wrote with the help of the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racist Task Force bypasses this issue of raising non-nationally recognized flags on municipal government and enables the committee to enact a process for flag raising that filters banners and messages that they might deem undesirable. The committee's decision on the matter of what flags to fly or not to fly can demonstrate their position on the message of the flag that it sends and will not be dictated simply by the fact that someone proposes to fly a certain flag. Our policy will give the committee a way to reject flags with messages that endorse violence, illegal activities, discrimination, prejudice, or racism. There are multiple criterion that would bar certain flags as per the policy, and should the committee adopt it, the reasoning for rejecting certain flags and not others would not be a matter of a nebulous opinion of the committee, but would be codified within a municipal policy that the company or the committee could point to. With causes as important as the one at hand, problems with the municipal code should not exist as one of the main obstacles to a flag that is vitally important to making Millburn Short Hills the most welcoming community it can be. With this said, we ask you to adopt this policy for flying non-nationally recognized flags and to fly the Black Lives Matter flag at the town hall. Thank you.
We have one more.
Okay, you want to take the Zoom or?
It's up to you.
Yeah, let's take this.
Hi, my name is Eddie Picalis. This is my son, Elias Picalis. We're at 46 Raleigh Place. We are, well, I'll let him speak for himself. I am very strongly opposed to any sort of flying flags or anything Black Lives Matter in the streets. There's a game that Black Lives Matter that people play between the statement Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter. The organization Black Lives Matter, if you go and you look on their website at what they stand for, and if you also look at what they have removed in the last few months, you will see that they are a vilely anti-Semitic organization, that they have that they support in many ways the violence that is happening in Portland and Seattle. Two people have been apparently killed in the last few days at events related to Black Lives Matter. That doesn't mean that the organization was doing it, but this is what's going on right now. Innocent people dying at these events, and to at this point be endorsing that, and you are endorsing the organization, and there's no other way to put it. It's not the statement. The flags that are being flown at town halls and being painted, that's in the design of the organization. So my parents are both Holocaust survivors. I'm very lucky to have them. They've spoken many times at Millburn High School. They have been paired with bar mitzvah students at the local synagogue here, and my parents are absolutely terrified of this organization. They are terrified to leave their apartment because of what's going on, because of the disarray in the streets that has come about in the wake of the rise of this organization. However understandable the emotions were, the aims of the organization go far beyond that packed statement. And I see I only have 12 seconds left, but I think my son could have a minute. So. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay. I don't think he has 2 minutes.
Well, yeah. So I'd like to ask, like, what constitutional grounds you have to put that up if you decide to, and also I'd like to add that the violence that's being committed in part like in the name of the Black Lives Matter organization, and against Black people from people who may not have been racist before, but now because of all this violence that's happening because of it, are getting angry about it and turning their anger in the wrong direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take one from the Zoom, and then we'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Me? Okay. Hi, guys. It's Regina Truitt. I live on Hartshorn Drive. Thank you for your service to our community. I wanted to support Jade and Henry and other members of the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racism Task Force in their request to have a Black Lives Matter flag hang over Town Hall on the flagpole out front. The Black Lives Matter guiding principles are to eradicate white supremacy and intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities and Black members of communities through advocacy, fundraising, and education. There is a precedent for flying flags over Town Hall that support groups such as the Pride Month flag, which I also fully support. So in light of that, there are other flags similar. I would support this flag as a statement to our Black community members that we support them and recognize that Black Lives Matter and the issues growing up as a Black community member in Millburn. Thanks again.
Thank you. My name is Jillian Bronstein. I'm a resident of town. I live at 45 Barnesdale Road. I am appalled that honestly this is even being discussed. Regina, I hope you can hear me. There is no equivalency of raising an LGBTQ flag and a Black Lives Matter flag. LGBTQ does not call for the destruction of Israel. It is not anti-Zionist. It does not blatantly try to defund the police. It does not promote anarchism. All lives matter. I think we all realize that. I actually am a realtor. I'm just not actively working now. I have never turned anyone away based on their religion, race, creed, nor would I. I commend that Jade and her colleague feel that they're doing something that's helping the whole community. However, they're going to divide this community like we've never seen before. There is no precedent to hang a flag that does have political affiliation, that is blatantly supporting a group that is indeed racist, because if you don't agree with them, then you are called a racist and you are the enemy. It takes away people's freedom of speech by this town making a stand by hanging that flag. I personally will be very insulted as someone who is of a religion which they are against. And it's very obvious, it's online, you can see recordings, hear recordings, and I can guarantee you that if this town does that, we will be on Fox News again. I have no doubt. So I hope you all think very wisely before you make a very bad decision and open Pandora's box. Because if you hang that flag, you also should hang a Nazi flag if white supremacists feel that they want a Nazi flag hung in this town. It is unacceptable, inexcusable, and should absolutely not happen, period.
No, I would ask you to please refrain from more.
But let it speak.
Good evening again. My name is Andrew Lane. I am almost without words, but I will seek to overcome my natural shyness to share. My father was a liberator. He liberated the death camps in Europe. I served in the New York Guard, their oldest recruit, but I served as much as they will allow me. I serve in an Army unit that is composed of men and women, all colors, all races, all religions. We do not have any flag except the flag of the United States. I work with many teenagers, and I applaud the teenagers who have taken the time from their schedules to share over the internet their thoughts, but they are very susceptible. We should not bend to the whims of the few based upon the fashion of the moment. We should maintain a steadfast course. We are a united States of America. All of you are serving in your capacity. All of us are participating in the democratic process. Our differences are not consequential. Our similarities are what we should be focusing upon. We don't need flags from different groups, albeit sometimes the perspective is righteous in their minds, but the reality, when you turn on any of the media, is that there's a great deal of violence associated with them. These children may disown it, but their leaders do not. We should not become part of this storm. We should maintain what we're doing. A decent community of good people doing their very best. Not denying racism is not the same as saying you support it. You are turning it upside down. We are all good people. I don't believe that there's a racist in this room. We should maintain where we are, and we should stay course. We will get past this. This pandemic will end, this violence will end, and we will still be here. Thank you.
Hello?
We'll take.
Hello? Hi, my name is Jenna Israel. I live on Briarwood Drive. I just want to respond to some of the things that I've heard folks say in their comments. First of all, Black Lives Matter is absolutely not anti-Semitic. I understand where you're coming from. I myself am Jewish. I myself, my last name is Israel. I understand where people are coming from, that Black Lives Matter has made statements about Israel and Palestine that you disagree with. I do not believe that those statements are anti-Semitic or coming from an anti-Semitic place. I believe that they are trying to do right by Palestinian people who have been oppressed by the current Israeli administration. So on that front, I truly don't believe that Black Lives Matter is anti-Semitic in any way. I also want to say some folks have talked about the violence that has occurred at Black Lives Matter protests. That violence is done by police and white supremacists. People who have been killed by white supremacists. So a 17-year-old white supremacist just recently killed someone in Kenosha. The violence that is happening, the killing and the maiming and harming of people is happening by police who are arresting people violently, beating them and killing them, and by white supremacist protesters who have come to hurt the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter protesters are not committing violence against people. I just want that to be known. That is really, really important. When you talk about violence, you have to talk about who is doing it and doing it to whom. Another thing that I want to talk about is that someone said something about if we don't put up the flag, it's not that we're not racist, we're just not putting up the flag. If you want to not be racist, you have to be anti-racist. You have to actively work against racism. Otherwise, you are allowing racism to happen, and that makes you complicit in a racist system. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Excuse me, you spoke in. I thought I'm allowed to go now.
Can I take her time? She
No,
can take my time.
no,
Take it.
no. We have other people that need to speak. And then,
How about Madam Chair at the end?
Can I take my time? Can I take her time?
no.
What? Jenna, I hope you can hear me right now because you are really mistaken.
Can she hear? No, you cannot respond to other people's.
Okay.
You must direct all your comments to the chair. You're not, this is.
Okay.
And you have already spoken, so at the end, if the time permits,
Fine.
after everyone else has spoken.
Can you go back?
I have to.
Go to the mic.
I don't want to. You can hear me from here. Everybody can hear me from here. I don't want to get up.
You need to get up so that you can be on the record. State your name and your address, please.
Laura Blasinski, 14 Ocean Street, Millburn. I just have to say that I think everybody here will agree with me. We respect if you or me wants to have a Black Lives Matter. Totally agree. Have it at your house.
This wasn't your jurisdiction to do that. You're gonna be carrying order.
Marissa Riley.
Hello.
Go ahead, Carissa.
Hi. Yeah, you know, I'm a member of the Millburn Anti-Racism Task Force, and it was part of helping Jade come up with this, you know, bringing it to the town council to put a Black Lives Matter flag. I'm very supportive of this. I do not see Black Lives Matter flags or the organization as being anti-Semitic. And, you know, it is the same thing as putting a pride flag to me. It is showing that we support and welcome that particular group, and we support the things that they have endured. It's not anti anybody, it's pro. And I just, it breaks my heart to hear people so upset about this. And, you know, if you look at the Instagram account, Black at Millburn, the things that our children of color have gone through as growing up in this community, it has to stop. I feel that we need to make an anti-racism stand, that we're behind that we support all of our residents, especially our residents of color who have not had the same welcome that other groups have had. It's not a political statement, and it's not anti anything.
I'm Spanish. I moved to this town.
You don't have the floor now. Thank you, Carissa. Did you have anything else?
And I'd also like to say thank you to Regina for attending. I'm sorry I couldn't attend with you.
She's with you virtually.
She was on Zoom also. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it right now.
Racist town. Oh my God. Where did that come from? Racist police. What?
No.
Hi. So, obviously, you know why I'm here. I'm going back to the city. And I did send my questions in advance. And through this whole process, none of my questions have ever been answered. So I'm not even going to waste my time asking my questions. But I simply will say is, why do we need to sit? And are you aware that 4 attorneys have looked at this conflict of interest issue and all have disagreed with the township attorney's analysis? Additionally, there's been an ethics complaint filed and a lawsuit, which is the ethics complaint, which is under review, and a lawsuit. None of this is a concern of yours? So I'm just going to leave it at those 2 questions. But I do have a statement, and I'm sorry I'm going on that. It's been since May that I've been totally distracted and pulled away from my own business, having to deal with the repercussions of the state ordinance. This has been extremely disheartening and exhausting, to say the least. Not only are we trying to survive and navigate through these unprecedented
times. But we've gotten absolutely no acknowledgement from the township, failed to show support to areas which have been included with the broadened footprint of this ordinance. We've given you many opportunities to answer our questions, hear our concerns, and work together as a community. You all would have shined, but there were no visits, no mask handouts, no street closures, no dining rooms. And sadly, the township couldn't even spell our restaurant's name right. But what about including all the businesses in town? And not just, why is everything based around the eateries? And I'm a restaurant, and I'm like, what about our other retailers and merchants? We totally left them out. But what we did get, without a feasibility study and much opposition, was a new assessment tax with absolutely no commercial property owner buy-in. Observing these meetings, I've only seen bullying, not a community that comes together during uncertain times. Sadly, I've gained some enemies and severed relationships of a select few who don't even know me until this ordinance came into play. This has been a terrible experience with the township, and I've lost my faith, trust, and appreciation for a majority of their commitment. I'm thankful for the friendships, the loyalty, and the commitment from the ones that stand behind me. Tonight, I ask the mayor not to be afraid, to be a leader, not a follower. I'm asking you to take charge of your town. Stand up for what's right. Do not be bullied. As a commercial property owner, I promise I'm almost done, and a merchant, I'm asking, please, don't just look at the votes, but stand together with the people that also are part of this town. Contribute to the town. Donate to the town. Add to the makeup and the dynamics. We are members that add and offer something to this town. How do you expect the commercial property owners and merchants to continue to support this town when the township committee won't extend the same courtesy? I've witnessed this committee bring every emotion out of people, pleading that you listen, hear their voices, consider their concerns, and answer their questions, including my own. But sadly, it's very clear. Not only will you turn your backs on us, but it's evident you wouldn't kneel for all of us. I will tell you that when I go to church, I will kneel and I will pray for all of you. May God bless you all and all of Millburn and Short Hills. Thank you for your time and consideration to rescind this ordinance.
Anybody else, public comment?
I'm Jean Pellegrini, Pastor Mayor, 342 Beauport Avenue. I have 4 things to say. I wanted to make a comment that I continue. I'm sorry? I know, can I show you?
Closer to the mic.
Okay, closer. Okay, I continue to support the business community in its request for transparency from this committee on all matters up to and including the SID ordinance and the seemingly done deal of hiring of Perkins Eastman with a recent legal matter that's of substance and should be considered, to the inclusion of the entire elected body in all deliberations to which they are entitled to be included. My second comment is this committee has gone down a slippery slope by hanging a flag other than the American flag in front of Town Hall. It is a process issue. It has nothing to do with favoring a group over another group or not wanting to include people that would wish to have something flying. I and everyone in this room support Jade and the other people who spoke toward wanting inclusion fully in our community. This has nothing to do with that. Thirdly, Mayor, are you going to apologize on behalf of the Township Committee members, including yourself, who acted in a very rude manner toward a citizen of Millburn who has put himself forward, like all of you have, which we all applaud, to put his time and effort into seeking an elected office in this body? There's already a question about Tara and her conflicted position on the SID vote. She made comments this evening publicly disparaging a candidate of the opposite party to which she is represented. I think this is also a conflict, and I do not think it's appropriate for those comments to have been made in this body. Fourth, are you going to enforce the rules about business-like manner equitably to all members of this audience, Mayor Lieberberg, such as the person sitting behind me who called that same individual who I just referred to as the candidate for Township Committee, naming him an asshole, excuse my quote, as he was exiting the room. Should he have been escorted out? Thank you.
We have one more person who spoke already on Zoom. Someone who spoke already on Zoom wants to speak again.
We'll take, there's somebody else who wanted to speak.
I'll just add one more thing.
And then we'll take that, and that'll be the end of public comment.
I just want to see if I heard correctly that in addition to hanging the Black Lives Matters flag, they also want us to paint Black Lives Matters in the street, which I have a huge problem with because I don't want my tax-paying money to be used for that, period. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of other residents who feel the same way. So again, think very long and hard about if you want to divide this community in a way like it's never been, because I really can guarantee you that the silent majority is not going to stay silent.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I just wanted to share with you all, my grandparents are homeowners in Millburn. We live on Rector Street by the high school, and my neighbor put up a Black Lives Matter sign in her window for us, which was very thoughtful, but my grandma was so afraid that angry Millburn residents would give her a hard time about it. And my neighbor, she didn't understand why anyone would be angry about it or why anyone would give her a hard time about it. And I think it's obvious from the way this meeting has went, the way people who support Black Lives Matter talk about the matter versus the way people who don't support it speak about it. You can hear the undeniable anger in everybody's voice, despite the fact that all we are asking for is equity and equality and no more discrimination. And raising this flag has everything to do with that, because if we don't want to raise this flag, then it's very hard to believe that the township of Millburn will do anything else to support its Black community. So like someone else already said, raising this flag, there is no impartial, there is no indifference. You are either actively anti-racist or you're part of the problem. So I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
I am not racist. But
Please state your name and your address, and you can take your mask off.
My name is Alan Carlin. I'm 246 Millburn Avenue, and I am not racist, but I do understand both sides, and I have to take issue with a lot that has been said today. And unfortunately, I think that I don't want to see the township being divided. That's all I have to say. And I know everyone wants to do the right thing, and I think it's very, very difficult. But I don't know if this is the place, or this is the place or the time or the venue to do it at this particular moment. It might be at a later time, but at this particular instant in time, I don't know if this is the right time. Thank you very much.
Another, we want to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Robert Gerard. I live on Seminole Way. I'm African American. I'm actually calling you from California. I'm out here with my identical twin granddaughters who were born 5.5 months ago. I've lived in the town for 30 years. I've raised 3 Black children in town. I'm here to tell you that racism does exist in Short Hills, Millburn. In fact, it was part of the reason why I sent my kids to private school after spending many years in the public school system in Millburn. My kids participated in Little League, soccer, and what have you, and indeed enjoyed a lot of the public spaces. But don't think for a moment, you know, the one that it doesn't exist, and that these are not issues that all of us as Black people in town have felt. Indeed, I've had discussions with my Jewish neighbors, several of whom have acknowledged their own name changes, which endure to this day. Name changes where they were changing their names from Jewish sounding names to less sounding Jewish names. And to this day, their friends and neighbors are not even aware of their Jewish heritage. This is a town that historically has had anti-Semitic experiences. I've talked to those same neighbors who talked about where they had been steered in terms of their housing and what have you. It's no different than it is with respect to other minority groups in the town. And I, of course, speak from literally a 30-year experience. That doesn't mean that things haven't improved to some degree. I'm sure they have, but let's face facts here. You know, the town is 1%, less than 1% African American. We are at an inflection point in the country. I think being on the wrong side of this issue in history would be the case if we don't hang such a flag and acknowledge, if you will, the moral issue, which is really the one that's at issue here. This idea of sort of threatening the fact of how this would further divide a town is precisely the point. It's this lack of acknowledgement, if you will, which is critically important in order to get any kind of reconciliation. As the most affluent town in the state of New Jersey and among the country, think about what an incredibly effective and important statement that would be, not just for the state, but for the country, particularly at this point in time, in order to support an idea built around equality, around social justice. I'm here to tell you there is not an iota of anti-Semitism that should be associated with Black Lives Movement. That is a trope situation where I don't know where it quite came from, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't really exist at all. And that's the sightlines of a guy in his late 60s who has a pretty good understanding of what this country is going through and who's been through those various issues himself. So I appreciate the time and effort. I've stuck with this presentation for a very long time, hoping we would get to this. And I appreciate the township's attention to this very important matter and to the students and the anti-racism coalition that's been formed around it. Extraordinarily courageous, extraordinarily timely, and I think an important issue for the town to take on headlong in the way that supports that effort. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, please.
I just have a very short statement to make, and that is that everyone feels a prejudice at one time or another over the course of a lifetime, whether you are, and I am not
Could you please state your name and
Tony
your
Carter, what about Short Hills? Everybody feels a prejudice at one time or another, whether you're Italian, whether you're Irish, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, and everybody can't have a flag raised in a community to soothe their feelings. It is my belief that dealing with prejudice makes an individual stronger. Everyone has an opinion about Black Lives Matter, but before any decision is made, please read the BLM manifesto on the internet, because that tells you exactly what they stand for, not what somebody thinks they stand for.
Another repeat, person with the company.
That's the last one.
I yield my time, remaining time to.
Now, we have this one, and then,
Carissa?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to add a little anecdote to my previous statement. Now, I don't know how many of you may have minority members in your family, but I have several. And my family also, the previous speaker, I totally understand what he said about Jewish families changing their names. My grandmother's family was Jewish, and in Southern Indiana, you couldn't be Jewish. You had to assimilate. And thankfully, we don't have to do that here anymore. That's not an issue that that we face at this time in history, but that's because we've progressed. But that's what the Black Lives Matter flag and that's what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, is progress. And being silent is being complicit. And I can tell you, as a realtor, I have met with homeowners who have said, I don't want anyone to know my ethnicity. I've met with homeowners who have said, you know, they have experienced police, you know, they were taking out their trash and police going around the block to see if they really belonged to be there. Racism is alive and well. It is a monster in this town. And, you know, we may like to think that we don't have racism, and we may like to think that we don't have drug abuse, and we may like to think that we don't have domestic violence, but all that is not true. Those are lies. All of that happens in this town and in every town. And that's why this town should participate like other towns and make a stand and be on the right side of history, because we don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And we don't want to be on the wrong side of tomorrow either. So let's support everybody in this town, and let's support our brothers and sisters that haven't had the same experience that many of us have had. And I can tell you, with people in my own family of color, their life experience is very, very different.
Thank you, Carissa. Okay, we're gonna take, Terry had one more comment and Nancy. Go ahead.
I just wanted to let the board know that in our last meeting in August, I had a tenant that was calling in, and I was under negotiation for tenancy. A lot of her questions, she was concerned about how much and what was that extra added assessment. That email also went to all of you. She got no response. She got a response from Christine Gotti. She said that she was assured that these questions would be answered. So not only, you know, and there was so much going on and people calling in that she was starting to get nervous, and there was a distraction and very much a deterrent. And she said to me, you know, the bottom line is money. And it was my decision to decide if I'm going to absorb that fee of the new assessment that's coming in 2022, or am I going to defer it? It's an open envelope. I don't know what it was going to be, and I was honest. And I was very transparent. I told her that I am opposing the SID, and there's nothing I can do. It's beyond my control. I just want you to know that this tenant walked away, so now you have a new statistic to your 17%. Thank you very much for that.
So I don't know how long that's gonna last empty again.
It'll be the final, which will get your public comment. Nancy Smith.
My name was Nancy Miranda first, which is a Latin name. I'm Jewish, Cuban, Puerto Rican. You can't get more racist than that growing up in Far Rockaway, Queens. We were the last Jewish graduating class of Far Rockaway High School before my parents moved to Cedarhurst, which was a similar community to this. And then David's parents, because we were high school sweethearts, moved to Syosset. This is very personal for me. And I can tell you that I know racism firsthand. I've experienced it. And my father-in-law changed his name from Finkelstein. I could have been a Nancy Finkelstein. Okay? And if you change it to Stone, to Stein, which is stone. And it is appalling to me that anybody would disparage the police. It is appalling. Heart-wrenching to hear the Millburn police or any police in this country disparaged in any capacity. Because you want to talk about racism, the Jews, the Turks, the Armenians, everybody has experienced racism in this country, in this world. But we're not asking for an Israeli flag to hang on Millburn. We're not asking for an Armenian flag or people genocide all over the world. I have to tell you, I wasn't going to talk tonight because you came for the sin, but this turned into, I don't even know what the hell it is. I have Black customers. I always service everybody. And I am personally, oh, you're not really Jewish because you have a Latin res. They know my Latina background. And maybe that's why I'm so loud. But it is absolutely appalling that this is even on a discussion. It should be the American flag, period, the end. That's it. And God bless the Millburn police and all the police in the United States. And I'm probably going to get, who knows what's going to happen because of this public statement. But I am so upset, I swear. I told Barry I wasn't going to talk because I swear if I spoke, I was going to have a heart attack. Shame on anybody on this.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy Finkelstein now.
My name's Cohen. I call it.
Consent agenda items. Are there any comments from the committee with respect to the consent agenda items? 20-165 through 20-173.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I do. I'm 2174.
Has been deleted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that's what I thought. And I have my original one.
Okay. I think we should note that we are appointing new firefighters, and for the first time in Millburn history, one of them is female. So kudos to the fire department for bringing forward. May I have a motion to approve resolution 20-165 through 20-173, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second? Roll call, please.
Proceed.
Can you hear me now? Hello? Miss Prupus? Miss Saul Eglo?
You can hear me. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Eglo.
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman.
Yes.
Mayor Lieber.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Wasserman, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2562-20.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2560-20, ordinance amending, supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and zoning ordinance. This is the ordinance, the restaurant ordinance. It basically allows a restaurant or food establishment to move into a vacancy that was a food establishment. It basically lowers the barrier for our establishments or restaurants in the downtown district to expand without going through zoning. And this is essentially going to lower an important barrier so our restaurants and our food establishments can expand without the added burden of zoning and hiring architects and lawyers to simply fill a vacancy. So we were going to do this before, but we were going to do it in other business districts, but but there were issues in other business districts. And we said, I thought it'd be a good idea, and I think there's a widespread consensus to do this in the downtown district. So that's the brief explanation.
Yeah, I move.
Yeah, okay, I move this ordinance be taken up and passed on the first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and the hearing in final passage of Tuesday, October 6, 2020.
May I have a roll? We need a second. Second. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes. I will be introducing ordinance 2563-20. This is an ordinance amending the Township of Millburn's development regulations and zoning ordinance. Earlier this year, a township residents on Park Road expressed concern over the zoning of a small area of the township that included Park Circle and Park Road. The concern presented to the Township Committee was that the streets designated as an R4 created numerous non-conforming lots. She asked that the Township Committee look into this matter. Paul Phillips prepared an analysis and he concluded that yes, that this should be changed to an R6 zone. Alex, is that a fair?
That is a fair representation of this change. Yes.
Okay. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the laws in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 6th. Second. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2564-20, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 2 Oaklawn Road, known as Block 2404, Lot 4. This ordinance is being proposed to authorize the acquisition of a permanent easement on 2 Oaklawn Road in order to enable certain construction and maintenance of storm water sewer facilities to address the flooding which occurs on that property. I believe, Alice, this has been going through our engineering department for quite a while.
Yes, it has.
And yeah, so this is the only way that the town can get to this broken, what do you call that?
Yeah, so we have a storm sewer system on an existing easement that is not fully functional. We're going to obtain an easement on the other side of that to connect additional piping so that we can relieve flooding in this particular location.
Right, and the only way to do this is to get this. Okay, I move, is that clear to everybody?
Yes.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance law in the item and the hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 6, 2020.
We have a second. Second. May I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Mayor Millburn?
Yes. Rural business. We will be reintroducing the ordinance on short-term rentals next meeting. We are awaiting some additional information regarding data analytics, the current status of home offerings, and compliance and surveillance costs associated with enforcement. We'll be reviewing those details and we'll be coming forward with a revised ordinance for the township committee.
Mayor, oh, I'm sorry, I had a question.
Yes.
So, you're bringing the ordinance in a new format, or it's not gonna be the same ordinance that we were looked at last year?
No, we had looked at something in March, and then we tabled it because of the pandemic, because all short-term rentals were on hiatus during, and still to, with respect to Governor Murphy's ban on short-term rentals. Deputy Mayor Kupis and I are looking at the document that KID had drafted back in March, and we're waiting for some information regarding the costs for monitoring using this outside Granicus, this outside agency, and what the costs associated with monitoring these properties. So once we have an idea of what the cost will be, then we'll be able to establish a fee structure that so that the township is not out of pocket for any of the fees associated with maintaining these restrictions.
So number 3, which was the first application fee, would be $500.
No,
That
I
might be changed.
Yes, I don't want to discuss any of the fees until we look at what the costs are associated with monitoring, and then as well as whether or not, how many houses it can potentially be, whether or not we have the bandwidth currently to monitor and also to regulate, to make sure people are, their egress windows and their fire, and that they're protecting all the compliance with all of those things. So we're not at a point yet where we're discussing fees, but we will be up on the 15th.
So the 15th will be introducing it as first read.
Yes.
But we'll see it before.
Correct. And my expectation is to have something in place so that gives people an opportunity, if they have any resisting, to start fresh in 2021. Does any committee member have new business to address?
I do.
So, I think that it's really important that we talk about raising the Black Lives Matter flag. I'm not really sure why the entire room emptied out, and I'd like to talk about this as a committee and see how we feel about it. I think that from tonight's everything that happened here, it's very clear to me that our township is divided, that raising a flag is not going to create division. Division is already here, and that we need to talk about it and we need to address it. And I think by flying the flag is a step towards addressing it and having that conversation, and it may and it will open up a can of worms. And I think it's important. I think now is the moment and the place and the time to address it. So that's how I feel about it. And I'd like to see what my fellow committee members think about it. And I know it's a really sensitive subject, and I just want to acknowledge that I heard everybody's comments in the room and on the phone tonight. So with that, I do think that we should raise it and raise the discussion or raise the flag. I think we should raise the flag and the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, so it is obviously an incredibly hot topic. I think the room ended out because I don't think people realize we're going to be discussing it. People on the phone might realize. When this first came about, you know, I speak to my family about this. I speak to my friends about this. And I thought, I actually was driving to Springfield today. As I was driving past Michael Park, there was a big banner that said, Union County supports Black Lives Matter. So then I specifically went to their town hall to see if they have the flag. They do not. Their flag happened to be at half staff, and I don't know why. Maybe because of the helicopter pilot, I'm not really sure. Is our flag at half staff, Alex? So maybe it was a Springfield resident. And I remember my first year on the committee, we were presented with, from the Hadassah, a resolution for the anti-BDS resolution. And I'm thinking that I think this might be a really good way to go, having a resolution by the township committee that, of course, I don't have the wording, we do not support racism. We do not support anti-Semitism. We support all lives. It was me originally who brought the pride flag to town for my family. And that is not a divisive issue. It is a completely inclusionary, which is why it's a rainbow flag. And then this year, we waited 2 weeks because we had to order a new flag with the black and brown stripe, which I didn't know that was the reason for the delay. So I think we are a very inclusionary community, but I think that I would support a resolution by the township committee, how we feel, and that is my opinion.
So,
I'm sorry. So no, I do not support raising the flag at town hall. Absolutely, I would support a resolution by our township committee, how we feel, and I think that there is very strong agreement in the community that we do not support racism. We certainly don't want to, in fact, we just hired 5 new police officers. We love and need our police officers. They work so incredibly with our school ever since my kids started the DARE program in grammar school, elementary school. So our officers do nothing but support goodwill in this community. And I believe that we have a terrific relationship with our police force.
Thank you.
well, I would also agree with you. We love our police. I think, Diane, you and I were in on the finance committee where we wanted to make sure that we had enough police to make sure that we were all kept safe. And if anything, we're going, the other way. We're making sure that we have, more police to make sure that we're safe. And I do understand that this is a divisive issue. I do understand it, and so I do understand it. However, that being said, I also I wanted to applaud Jade Wicker, who really reached out to everybody, and I want to thank Bob Gerard for calling in, and there's definitely 2 sides of this. But for me, I do see what's happening in the country. My heart breaks for Black citizens that where these terrible things are happening. So my heart breaks, and I do think one of the proudest moments that I had was helping raise the pride flag this year. And that took a lot of leadership in Millburn. That was a very special, it's a very special thing that we do to make sure that that community feels included. So I'll say one other thing. I think that although we always, there's always a difference of opinion here, and Nancy, you always speak from the heart, and even though we may not agree on everything. So, so I understand that, but I think that we have to start by saying, we all love this community, even though sometimes we disagree with things. So, there's a lot of sensitivity, and with that being said, I do think it's time to, I would raise the Black Lives Matter flag to show our inclusion and our sensitivity to Black citizens. And you know what? Maybe we're at the front of this, and the country very divided right now. But Millburn is an inclusionary town. We have one of the best people in the world in this town, you know, Sir, I'm allowed to speak here also. I'm allowed to speak here also.
Research
Please-
what
please-
you and
Please let me finish, okay? Please let me finish. So with that, so again, I know people are divided over this, but I just want to say that, it show the right thing,
Put Israel flag, put Israel flag.
Put a Nazi flag.
you know, listen again, I know that people are divided over this.
But then don't divide anymore.
I believe that it's time to show support.
Put a Puerto Rican flag.
Excuse me, you will not have cross comments.
Yeah.
Mr. Wasserman is speaking, and if you cannot be quiet, I will ask our police officer to escort you out of the building.
So anyway, I'll finish. So with that being said, and again, I know that people are divided over this, but I think it's time, and I would support Farah, the deputy mayor. I would support raising the Black Lives Matter flag, you know, for whatever the time period would be to show our support. And yes, listen, I'm Jewish, and I know that there's prejudice, but maybe it's time that we show leadership there.
Can I ask something?
No, I'm speaking. Okay. The public comment period is now over. Okay,
You raise something new,
No,
you need to reply.
the public comment is over. You know, I've been doing a lot of research and looking at what other towns have done with respect to the Black Lives Matter flag. There's an article about a town in Bristol, Rhode Island, that said that had told numerous residents that spoke at a meeting, and one said it's a strong symbolic gesture that Bristol does not tolerate racism and welcomes people of all races and nationalities. Another comment was, it's the beginning, flying the flag is the beginning of the healing, and at very least we can do to acknowledge that there's been a history of racism. These were a couple of things that were raised in Bristol, Connecticut. I think it's important that we raise the Black Lives Matter to support the tenets of equality, social justice, fairness, and anti-racism. And it is by no means, I think it's also very, very important to acknowledge that raising the flag does not support any effort to fund our police.
You have to do homework.
Shame on you!
Learn how to read.
Raise the flag at your house. You read the manifesto. Shame on you! Shame on you!
You don't know how to read.
Terrorist order. You're gonna regret these.
You're painting a target on Dennis.
I think, Mr. Phelps, maybe the mayor can post the agenda. We could put on the
Actually, I'm
agenda.
gonna raise a motion tonight, so can we let Jackie finish, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
You know, Karen, I just agree
Wait,
with you.
So my thought is that it's important to acknowledge that the raising of this flag does not support any efforts to defund our police department. I also think it's important that we continue to support this community task force that will address issues of importance, including equality, fairness, balance, and anti-racism.
May I respond to you?
Yes.
I think that the last thing you said is we raise the flag, we do not support defunding the police. However, if that is one of the strong tenets of the Black Lives Matter, which is, I believe, why there are so many riots. And I would like to ask, if you're gonna make a motion, I would like to make a motion that we talk about, first of all, I would like to get our business administrators' take, if you would, not in your personal feelings, but what this means for municipality. And what are the guidances of raising a flag? And I will also add, I remember when we had the anti-BDS resolution, Dan Levy made a very strong reason as a Jewish person who does not support the BDS movement was, is that in the purview of the municipality? And that was a really, and that was a statement why I chose to vote for that resolution. So I think that that could be a starting point versus raising so much hostility in either direction in the community. And ask if you think it's appropriate, the legalities of flag raising.
Well, as the fact that I'm not an attorney, I would actually defer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
And you can probably.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Is that my cue? You have a memo from me of last month in July, which I won't refer to in detail. I do believe that no matter what you decide to do tonight with respect to raising the flag, that you should next think about a policy going forward. I think there are almost inherent problems down the road about, well, why do we choose this group and why do we not allow that group? and taking measures to make sure that this does not become what's called a public forum, so that denying someone the right to raise a flag will put you in a box that you're avoiding freedom of expression. So all I would say is you can fly a flag, but I think you ought to promptly move to consideration of a policy going forward so that you have some kind of a uniform approach to how to deal with these things. And you may also decide to pass a resolution as something, compatible with that. But that's my take on this. Go next to a policy.
So I would like to put a motion on the floor, with that being said, that we raise the Black Lives Matter flag for 14 days in the month of October. And I would also like, I don't know if this has to be part of that same motion to also create a policy moving forward on how we're going to address this as a larger issue. Does that have to be part of the motion, or are they two separate motions?
No, I think you could do it together if that's what that your sense of what you want to see happen, that the flag be raised and that a policy be pursued, that could be in one resolution.
Yeah, and I.
Actually, you're doing a motion to authorize the administrator to allow the flying of the flag on the township's flagpole.
I'm going to do one and then the other. I'm actually going to split it up because I would like to put a motion for that to fly the Black Lives Matter flag for 14 days within the month of October. I would like to move that forward.
Are you saying fly on the same flagpole as our American flag outside town hall?
Yes. Is that where we do the pride flag? Hold on.
I don't know if it's the same.
What do we do with the pride flag?
Pride flag is on the left-hand side. We have two flagpoles at the top.
Separate. So it's separate.
Well, it still has an American flag on it.
Yes.
But it's on the left hand.
So it's the same, so the left-hand pole. All right, so let me try this motion one more time. So I'd like to set forth a motion to fly the Black Lives Matter flag on the left-hand pole for 14 days in the month of October.
I think that goes a bit against the advice we just got from our township attorney.
It's not, he said that absolutely that we could fly the flag.
Yes,
and then he said, and he said to talk about a policy going forward. No, he did not.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
This is new matter. The public never had notice of this.
That's the point, Mr. Bell. Mayor?
May I address this? You have a procedural process here.
Yes.
What's on the agenda?
I second the motion.
We're totally heard on this because you're going into another lawsuit right now. You really are
I
going-
honestly did not think we were voting on this tonight. I thought it was
Oh,
for
but that's
discussion
how you know.
purposes only.
Especially in the
What?
virtual.
Does the public need to be made on this, need to be heard on this motion?
Yes, it's a walk-on motion.
Oh,
No,
What?
Okay.
Get his license. There's a virtual meeting. Have you read the DCA rules? Alice, did you read the rules?
The one you read?
No, there's the other ones too. There's a walk-on, emergency things. You're not supposed to do this stuff. The public's gonna go crazy when they get what you did.
There's a second.
Second, we have a roll call, please.
I just put something on the record, because you have an open public meetings
Yeah.
act violation. I have to put something procedurally, I have to put something on the record to preserve the right for
Yeah,
court.
yeah.
You know, the attorney talk about, I have to put an objection on the record.
Talking to.
Sir,
It's out of order.
there's a vote on the
Removed.
floor. You can address the issue later.
No, I have to put it on the record.
Sir.
We have a roll call, please, Christine.
Ms. Burgess? Yes. Ms. Aglo? I have a huge issue with how this procedure is once again not addressing the public. I don't know the legality of this. It was not on the agenda for a discussion tonight. I absolutely vote no. I don't believe it's the right thing to do, but I also do not believe our policy procedures are being effectuated properly. I believe I did hear the town attorney say, get a policy first. So, okay, well, I'll check the tape, but I vote no, Ms. Gaddy.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Weaver?
Yes.
All right, I would like to also make another motion now that we make a policy on how to address future flag raising time. So at how we are going, a policy on how we're going to address raising flags in the future.
I'm sorry for anyone who put this is backwards. We're making a decision and
I
then we're
made-
gonna get a policy
Okay,
after the.
I made a motion on how we're going to then deal with it
But
going
why
forward.
would you, committee woman, Sarah, let's talk. Why would you make a decision to make a motion to do something that we have no policy for? This is like passing the SID against objection. This is like, everything that's going on is just upside down and backwards. And the people walked out because they were unhappy. They didn't know we were gonna be voting on it. There's
There's
people
lots
who
of
want to
people still on
speak.
the phone that are want to see what happens here.
Okay, so this is backwards and upside down, and I don't believe we're doing what is best for the community as a governmental and elected body. And that is my statement on that. But obviously, there are 3 people here who rule and govern with impunity, and it's just not working. I don't understand.
Yes, so I have a question. The policy, we can look at it at some date, right? I mean, that's the idea that we will move forward with a policy with respect to, yes. I second that. Roll call.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Aglo?
No, backwards.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Weaver?
Yes.
Go to the video.
Yes. This meeting is adjourned.
Motion to close.
Motion to close, sorry.
Video?
You can go on the Millburn, video channel. Yeah, everything is on the Millburn YouTube channel.
No. The
You know,
first thing
if
he
you,
did after the FBI raiding.
if you call
You got
tomorrow,
You made
the
sure.
clerk will give you the
Never
link.
walk on
I don't know it.
Now, no.
We just go to Millburn Township YouTube, right?
If you look at the indictments that
Yeah, but two weeks ago, like months later, it's on.
I'm sorry. We have our own YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy